Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was one of the hollows Hueco Mundo, home of vicious and horrendous souls called hollows. Then he became one of them. Naruto will prove that even as a hollow, life is determined by one's own beliefs, and shake the foundation of the spiritual world as a result. Welcome aboard! Chapter 4, Encounters. I still don't agree with this. We shouldn't be snooping around here and acting like a bunch of spies. Harabelle turned to her younger partner, a hint of annoyance flashing in her eyes. Naruto, it doesn't matter if you agree or not. Aizen-sama asked us to keep an eye out on the city for the moment, so that's what we're doing. The Shinigami have been improving in their patrols as of recently, so we've got to be all the more careful. Naruto tugged at his orange shirt while adjusting the sunglasses. He had opted for something more fit for the current summer weather of the area just outside of Karakura. Harabelle, being the ever-mysterious person that she was wearing a sundress with a veil to cover the lower portion of her face. To top it off, she had a large sun hat on top of her head. Naruto could make the faint outlines of her lips behind the cloth. Harabelle, I really think you'd look fine without the veil. I'll say it again, I wanted to wear this by choice. The shorter blonde shrugged his shoulders while pulling out some change as they approached an ice cream stand. So, you want a cone too? The tercera nodded, strawberry. Naruto grinned, then turned to the woman behind the counter. 1 strawberry and 1 vanilla, please. 2 scoops each. The woman smiled while giving the man in the back the order. After paying her and receiving their cones, Harabelle realized something. She had to pull down the veil in order to eat the ice cream. How did she not see that beforehand? Not interested in your cone? Naruto teased, earning a weak glare from his female counterpart. You tricked me. She spoke in an accusing tone. Naruto just laughed as she pulled back her veil. He gave her a soft smile as she slowly let her veil fall around her neck. What? The Frachin just kept smiling. I was right about you not wearing the veil. You look better that way. Harabelle gave a faint growl as she began licking her cone. Her face was what Naruto had imagined it to be, stern, yet at the same time radiating a beauty woman with her position of power were known for. She looked to Naruto, who was still blushing, and sighed, stop staring. Naruto looked ahead while chuckling, you shouldn't be so afraid of your looks. You're getting more than a few appreciative looks from the people as it is. It was a well-known fact that the Jigai of Naruto and Harabelle were among the more well-constructed, seeing as the two were usually the two that visited Karakura the most. This was the first time that Naruto had managed to get Harabelle to reveal her pseudo-body's face. They stare because they're shallow humans, Naruto. They don't know who or what I am. Well, I do, and I'm still here. Harabelle rolled her eyes while the two headed towards the beach. They set down 2 towels and an umbrella before lying down. It was around 2 in the afternoon, and with it being summer, more than a few people were playing at the beach. The sound of children laughing could be heard. However, this wasn't a time to relax. Harabelle and Naruto were here on a mission under the guise of 2 vacationing individuals. Naruto pulled down his sunglasses and looked to the sky with a smirk. Looks like they found one already, Harabelle. The blonde Espada followed her pupil's gaze and noted 3 Shinigami who were fighting a rather large hollow with wings. That hollow is nothing special. They should be able to take it out without a hitch. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, the hollow had been defeated, its soul being purified and sent to Soul Society. Those 3 took a bit long, don't you think? Naruto asked as he let the sun's rays bathe him in the golden light. Looks like Siriidii is getting lazy on its training, or the new recruits aren't as talented. Harabelle had taken her dress top off, now only having her bikini top covering her. She gave Naruto a sideways glance before smiling. You noticed too? She chuckled a bit. I half expected you to be dozing off by now. If I were Stark, then I would be. Naruto grumbled. Harabelle remained watching as the 3 Shinigami headed off towards the city interior, taking note of how they fought for her report. About 15 minutes passed before she could hear the light snoring of Naruto. She raised an eyebrow. He's more like Stark than I think he cares to admit. That was when she saw 3 kids pass by, 2 boys and a girl. They were no more than 7 years in age, and they were all carrying pails and plastic shovels. She suddenly had a great idea. Excuse me, kids? The 3 children stopped, looking to the fair-skinned woman. Yes, miss? Harabelle gave them a small smile. My friend here said that he wanted to be covered in sand when he fell asleep, but I don't have a shovel or pail. Do you think you could cover him up for me? The three kids smiled before getting to work. Hiyori wasn't sure how, but somehow Lisa, Love, Kensei, and Mashiro had managed to convince her to go to the beach. She would have rather not, considering that she didn't really like her yellow polka dot bikini. Still, she did like getting a nice tan for the summer. Hey! Hiyori-chan, can you pass me the sunblock? Hiyori threw the bottle of sunblock to Mashiro before fixing her sunglasses. Don't put too much of that stuff on, we just bought it today. Mashiro, not one to really listen, squeezed out a large blob of the white goo before applying it to her arms and legs. Aren't you going to go swimming, Hiyori-chan? No. Mashiro pouted, but the water is really nice. The former vice captain of the 12th Division sighed, Mashiro, I said no. You're just afraid everyone will make fun of your small boo dash. A sandal went flying at the green-haired girl's face as Hiyori stormed off to the ice cream stand, muttering about murder and stupid people. I think you were going a bit overboard with that one, Mashiro. Love commented as he took a sip of lemonade. I have sand in my ears. I don't know how you think this is funny. The visitors all looked to see a rather distraught young man with blonde hair shaking his head to the side to get rid of any excess sand grains, grumbling all the while to a blonde-haired woman. That idiot sure is loud. Grumbled Hiyori, someone ought to shut dash. All of the visitors paused as they felt a dark presence enter Karakura, followed by a scream. Lisa and Love were standing up immediately, but before they could even think of going to investigate, another voice rang out. Naruto, hold on. The visitors looked to see the blonde male from earlier lying on the ground while a different figure who looked almost exactly like him was taking off in the direction of the dark power. The visitors sensed it right off the bat. That guy is giving off the spiritual pressure of a hollow. Love spoke, watching as the man disappeared into the buildings of the town. They looked to the woman, only to see her staring back at them. She narrowed her eyes before picking up the body of the blonde and flickering away. What the hell is going on? Hiyori asked, gripping her zanpakuto that had been lying next to her towel. Am I the only one who's sensing some seriously powerful hollows around here? Love shook his head, call me crazy, but I think those two yelling over there were hollows. He turned towards the direction that the blonde-haired male had gone, and sighed, damn it, and I was really hoping to relax a bit too. A girl in her early teens with a chain running down her chest scrambled to her feet, turning hard down an alleyway while a few tears streamed down her face. What was that thing chasing her? She had seen them before, but they never attacked her until now. Help! Please, somebody! She screamed as the strange beast roared, gaining ground on her. Before she could exit the alley, something wrapped around her legs, causing her to fall hard. She was lifted into the air, and was soon face to face with the masked atrocity. It resembled a squid-like monster of sorts, floating above the air a bit as its numerous tentacles twitched while searching for prey. The squid-like hollow let out a low growl as it opened its maw, revealing razor-sharp teeth lining the funnel of a mouth it had. The young plus gave a sob, knowing she was doomed. All she wanted to was help watch over her sister and brother. She didn't mean to get caught in that riptide and get dragged out to the ocean. She didn't think that she would drown. The memories of her younger brother and sister living on their own now caused her cry harder. Why? This wasn't fair. Let the girl go. The plus girl opened her eyes, dangling by the tentacle of the hollow as it paused, eyes directed towards the masculine voice that had interrupted its feast. It growled, holding the girl in the air as it moved towards the newcomer. I said, repeated the voice, which turned out to be a blonde-haired young man with the oddest adornment on his face, let the girl go, now. The plus girl noted that her possible savior had a hole around his upper right pectoral, and an open white vest and white pants that were a little baggy for him. The hollow gave out a roar as it halted in front of the bold male. Help me! The girl cried out weakly. The blonde looked up to her, and simply nodded. I have this under control. Don't worry. Naruto replied, crossing his arms, while facing the hollow once more. I'm not going to repeat myself again. Now either do as I say or I'll make a meal out of you. The hollow roared a reply, to which Naruto simply scoffed at, hungry? Go eat a hollow then. There's plenty of them to go around in Hueco Mundo. Hell, go feast on a Shinigami if you want. Eating an innocent soul like her though, that's just disgusting. The hollow replied by slamming one of its tentacles to the ground, shattering the concrete into various fragments. Naruto didn't flinch in the slightest. It's the ones like you that give us in Hueco Mundo an especially bad name. Is hunger all you can think about? Apparently, the hollow had enough with talking, seeing as it instead attempted to catch Naruto with its many appendages. Naruto didn't move, but if one looked closely, they would have seen the faint flash of steel before the numerous tentacles fell to the ground, twitching as black blood spurted out of them. The hollow roared in agony as Naruto shook his head. I may be more like you than the humans, but that doesn't mean I relate to you. A bastard like you needs to be dealt with before you get to be too powerful. Naruto raised a hand, palm opened, and fired a single condensed ball of Ryatsu at the hollow. The ball shot straight through the masked behemoth before flying into the sky and exploding in a shimmering glow of red. The monster roared before letting go of the plus girl and exploding into spirit particles. It wouldn't even get a chance to be purified. That was a Shinigami's job, not Naruto's. The plus girl looked up to the mysterious rescuer of hers, tears still streaming down her face as she looked in awe. Thank you. Naruto gave her a small smile. Don't mention it. Now get going before more of those things get over here. The girl nodded. Right. Before she could leave though, Naruto spoke up. You don't need to feel guilty for dying, by the way. None of us are meant to stay here forever. The girl said nothing, but smiled a bit as she headed off to a random direction. Naruto sighed, hoping that a Shinigami would find her. He really hated the lack of attention they were giving this area as of late. Weren't they supposed to be the ones who protected the souls of the living and deceased? Naruto shook his head and floated up to the air. He didn't get far though, feeling a sudden Ryatsu signature weigh down on him. He paused in his ascension into the air and looked to his right, only to see a man with a spiked afro and stylish sunglasses standing before him. That was quite a light show you created earlier. Care to explain where you learned it from? The blonde Arrancar gave a grin. Sorry, trade secret, I'm afraid. Love Aikawa grinned. Well, I'm not entirely sure if I should fight you. You saved that girl there. I was always under the impression that hollows killed pluses. Nah, we're not so bad. I'm not, at least. I go by the code of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and seeing as she never attacked me, I wouldn't attack her. I'd rather protect her, seeing as she was innocent. Naruto replied, causing Love to raise an eyebrow. Interesting to hear from a hollow. Actually, you're not even a true hollow anymore, are you? The whiskered blonde just laughed. Nope. I'm in a completely different class. Naruto hesitated to go on, but decided he would be getting his butt chewed out by Harabel either way. May as well go for the whole 9 yards with this. I'm an Arrancar. A hollow who has removed a portion of its mask, and gaining Shinigami powers as a result. I was in a Juchas class before I became what you see before you. The former captain laughed a bit. You don't seem to have any qualms about telling me this, do you? My superior's already pissed off at me. Besides, I feel like I may as well give you some incentive to talk to me. Not too often I get to see someone who can pull off a look like yours and give it some justice. As if on cue, Naruto felt a second and much deadlier Ryatsu crash down on him. He turned slowly, a nervous smile on his face. He turned to see Harabel out of her jigai, and looking, to put it lightly, very angry. Naruto. We're leaving. Now. Hey, Harabel-chan. Hey, I was just having an intelligent conversation here with, Naruto looked to the man before him, a pleading look on his face. Love. Love Aikawa. Right, Love. He and I were just having an intelligent conversation about moral values and the lack of them in Hueco Mundo as of late, right? Harabel didn't seem to care about Naruto's explanation, instead turning her attention to Love and the 4 other newcomers that she had seen at the beach. Naruto, we've revealed ourselves too much. Do you have any idea what this is going to do to us? Help us establish a friendly relationship with these renegade soul reapers? Harabel didn't even blink as she turned her eyes to Naruto. I'm not laughing, Naruto. You could try, hee. Naruto coughed nervously as Harabel's Ryatsu rose in response to his little jab. Right, sorry Harabel. Hiyori, as usual, decided to speak. Hey, Love. Who are these two? Love turned to his 4 comrades, Arrancar, apparently. Harabel's eyes widened before turning to Naruto. He just laughed while shrugging. Like I said, we were just talking. Kensei pulled out his sword. If I didn't know any better, I'd say they're a lot like us. The others pulled out their blades. All except Love, at least. His companions looked at him curiously for a moment. Lisa spoke as she pointed her blade at the two. So, who sent you two here? Harabelle's eyes narrowed, her features otherwise revealing no trace of emotion. I'm afraid we can't reveal that to you. Naruto sensed that things were going to get heated. We better get out of here before Siriidii decides to stop by and join the party. Although, aren't you five from Soul Society as well? We were. Kensei replied, causing Naruto to raise an eyebrow. It's a long story, kid, and I don't feel like sharing it with you. Naruto suddenly recognized the silver-haired man and girl with green hair as the two Shinigami he had seen during his first visit to Karakura. Why were they here? Weren't they both supposed to be leading a squad in Soul Society? As far as alerting Soul Society, replied another voice, causing both Arrancar to whirl around to face three more men brandishing blades. We've already set up a barrier to keep them from sensing you. Shinji? Rose? Hachi? What the hell took you three so long? The man who had spoke turned to the pigtailed girl. Shut up, Hiyori. Geez, no need to yell. Harabelle raised her Ryatsu, turning to Naruto. We have to go. Now. Naruto caught on to her meaning and looked around the area. Sure enough, he could see the Fane warping in the air. The barrier. He smirked as he aimed an open palm towards the warped air. We're going to have to cut this meeting short. Love, it was a pleasure meeting you. What the hell is he doing? Lisa spoke in astonishment, getting no response from the other seven wizard. Naruto's index and middle fingers pointed forward as a vibrant orange ball of energy began to spiral in his hand, casting rays of light around him. He jabbed his arm forward and launched a gigantic Zero from his two fingers. The immense blast of energy roared through the air and smashed into the nearly invisible wall. Not more than a second passed before it broke through, causing the transparent walls to dissipate. Harabelle and Naruto wasted no time, using their Sonido to retreat. Crap! Shinji muttered, and the wizard were soon hot on the trail of the two Arrancar. Whoa! Take a look at this. Deep within the confines of Siriidii, a group of Shinigami who monitored the human world gathered around a monitor, staring at it with mild curiosity. What's up? The one who had called the others over pointed at the readings. Tell me I'm going crazy. I've never seen readings like this before, and they're not from a captain. The others looked for a brief moment before they too went tense. We need to inform Mayuri Taishu immediately. The Spirit Research and Development Institute, better known simply as the SRDI, covered the various duties in the science department of Soul Society, from developing Jigai to monitoring the spiritual activity of the human world. As such, when stuff involving spiritual energy went down in places such as Karakura, they were the first to know. About 5 minutes later, Mayuri Kuratsuchi was standing before the monitor while his subordinates waited anxiously for his orders. He hummed a bit while looking over the readings that had been printed out. You say these readings appeared with no trace of any previous hollow entry activity? Akon, one of the head researchers in the SRDI, nodded. Yes, Mayuri Taishu. There was no previous evidence of a Garganta being opened, or anything else close to that matter before these numerous hollow readings appeared. Mayuri scratched his chin a bit longer before nodding. Interesting. I'll have to make note of this. Inform the current patrol squads on alert of this matter. The eccentric captain walked off with his copy of the readings, musing over the numerous factors that were displayed. Very peculiar. A team of Shinigami were soon sent out to investigate the problem in Karakura, all the while the SRDI continued to monitor these abnormal readings. Hollows this powerful had no reason to be in Karakura, did they? Naruto and Harabelle were having the hardest time trying to elude this group of renegade Shinigami. It wasn't like Harabelle couldn't create a Garganta and leave Karakura with Naruto. She simply was never given enough time to open a rift. Their pursuers were fast. Harabelle, I think we need to hold them off. I'll distract them. You create an exit for us. Harabelle shook her head. No. You're not strong enough to take on 8 by yourself. We simply will have to try and throw them off by heading down to the crowded area and create our escape. Naruto, get back here, now. Her yelling fell upon deaf ears as Naruto headed towards the wizard, his flight pattern erratic and unpredictable. He's heading our way. Rose yelled, and the group split in two as Naruto rocketed past them. He halted in flight, spinning around with both hands holding a ball of orange light in them. He gave the group an apologetic smile. Sorry, but we have to leave. Naruto began launching a volley of bala at the wizard. They had no choice but to avoid the attacks, lest they wished to be scorched by the condensed energy. The Fraction kept up his assault on the group. Shinji, being one of the faster members of the group, made an effort to get past the barrage. He appeared at Naruto's side, a rather annoyed look on his face. "Geesh, you didn't have two overboard there. Talk about wasting energy." Naruto moved to the side as Shinji's blade slashed at the afterimage of the Eren car. The younger blonde drew his own blade, the clanging of steel on steel echoing through the air as Shinji and Naruto exchanged attempted attacks on each other. Harabel decided not to let Naruto's effort go to waste, opening up a garganta. She looked to see Naruto occupied with one of the enemies, and cursed her younger partner's stubborn attitude. She saw him look towards her, and then to the garganta. He gave her a nod, and dodged a series of barely visible slashes from the older blonde. "You really don't have to fight me, you know. We didn't cause any trouble." Shinji sighed. "Yeah, but you're also much more powerful than a hollow, and you seem to be like us. That can mean a variety of things, but I have an inkling that your powers aren't from a good source." "Nothing personal." The whiskered blonde made a jab at Shinji's shoulder, not surprised in the least as he blocked it. "You really ought to lighten up. Hey, like I said, I can't risk you and that woman romping around here in Karakura. I'm assuming there's more than just you two, right?" Naruto merely smiled. Shinji decided that he had to end this, and end it now. He closed his eyes, hand going over his face. A second later, a skeletal mask appeared over his face. Naruto's eyes widened, and he backed away a bit. "What the hell is that?" The first thing that came to the Fraction's mind when Shinji's mask appeared was why he suddenly sensed a hollow's power. He didn't have much time to mull over it though, as he was forced to block the now much more powerful Shinji and his blade. "I really don't feel like explaining it, but I'll say this much." Shinji spoke, his voice much more gravely and lower than before, as though there was a second presence speaking with his own voice. "This power is that of a wizard. It's a power much like your own, but so different as well." "A wizard?" Naruto repeated, calling forth more Ryatsu as he pressed his blade against Shinji's. "Where the hell did you gain hollow powers from?" "Long story. No need to tell you it anyway." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "Fine. Be that way." The whiskered blonde growled as he felt his own aura begin to grow. "I'm afraid that I'll have to decline continuing this fight though. I have business elsewhere." "Which one were you?" "Shinji? Yeah, that's me." "Good. That helps. What are you talking about?" The blonde gave a sad grin. "Sorry, Shinji." Naruto shot a quick bala from his free hand, sending the surprised Hirako back a good distance. Naruto noticed that the about 3 of the wizard were heading his way while another 4 were preparing to engage Harabel. He prepared to make a quick rush through them, hoping that he'd avoid any major injury, especially from that love guy, who had decided to rush Naruto. His plan, however, was thrown out the window as the pigtailed girl lifted her hand, soon adorning a mask of her own, also skeletal in appearance. "What the hell? You too? Damn straight, bastard," shouted the masked girl. "No, quit running away and fight already." Naruto grimaced as he ducked under the girl's rather wild swing. She wasn't nearly as fast as that Shinji, but she did know how to wield that blade. Naruto delivered an uppercut to her, causing her to let out a gasp as she went flying into the air. He spun around just in time to avoid getting impaled by love, and quickly delivered a kick to the sunglass-wearing wizard. Not getting a break, Naruto felt the need to duck, only to see a large blast of spiritual energy going past him. He whipped around to see the large man with pink hair from Shinji's group holding his hands out. He must have been the one named Hachi. Naruto noticed that attack had drained the man a bit. Not wasting a minute to give the Kido user a chance to recover, Naruto quickly phased from view, reappearing before the man, gripping his wrist and throwing him downward along with love. Harabel blocked another powerful kick from the seemingly harmless girl with green hair. She was using some strange power that had given her a mask not unlike a hollow's. It resembled that of an insect or bug of sorts. She wasn't using her blade though, instead resorting to using her amplified physical strength to distract Harabel while the man with short hair used his knife-like shuriken to blast wind at her. The girl with glasses from earlier at the beach was also engaging Harabel alongside the mask-wearing girl. The Tercera spun around and dodged a swipe from the bespectacled woman's blade, and caught the green-haired girl's ankle. She spun her around a few times before launching her at the muscular male wizard. Much to her chagrin, a fourth member of the group, a man with flowing blonde hair and a rather effeminate appearance, was soon engaging her as well. Harabelle drew her blade, blocking the skilled swordsman's attacks. "You're pretty skilled for someone holding back so much." Rose spoke, causing Harabelle to raise an eyebrow. "So, you could tell?" Harabelle replied, parrying another attack in the midst of their conversation. "It's not hard to tell. You're obviously the boy's superior, and he is putting up a hell of a fight with Shinji and the others over there." Harabelle watched as Naruto managed to take out the largest male of the group. He turned towards Harabelle, giving her a concerned look, as though saying, "You need help?" Harabelle shook her head before spinning around after blocking Rose's blade again and delivering a kick to Lisa. She coughed up some blood and went flying through the air. Rose's attention was lost on the battle for a brief moment, seeing Lisa get taken out so easily. Harabelle took that moment for what it was worth, slamming her blade against his as he gave a weak attempt to block. She grunted and pushed Rose down towards Karakura. Naruto flew to her side, taking in a few deep breaths. "They have hollow powers. They call themselves Vizards or whatever." The Tercera simply nodded. "I noticed. Their power is amplified greatly with those masks." She turned to see the Vizard regrouping, those who had been wearing masks managing to hold onto them. Before anyone could make any further movements, a tingling sensation went through the two Arrancar's bodies. "Soul Societies discovered us." Naruto spoke, Harabelle giving a nod. "Guess we're bugging out now, right?" "Yes," Harabelle replied. The two headed to the Garganta while closing it behind them. As it did, Naruto turned to face the group of 8. "Sorry about the ruckus we caused." He grinned, giving them a wave. It closed as he continued grinning, and then there was nothing. Shinji, Mashiro, and Hiyori released their masks, groaning as they did so. Hiyori was the first to speak as they returned to the ground. "Damn it. It couldn't be helped, Hiyori. They were holding back, but so were we." "Too much Ryatsu and Karakura would be affected by it," spoke Shinji, who looked as a group of Shinigami appeared in the sky where they had just been fighting. The former captain of the 5th Division laughed a bit as they looked around in a rather stupid fashion before heading off in a direction to continue searching for the powerful spiritual energy they had sensed only a short while ago. The new recruits really needed to work on getting to the scene of Ryatsu's signatures quicker. "What do you make of it?" Love asked, nursing a bruised shoulder from the blonde Arrancar. "They said they're called Arrancar, and are hollows who gain Shinigami powers." Shinji shrugged. "It's not our problem right now, though I'd bet money that Aizen has something to do with it." The 8 headed back to their warehouse, all having different thoughts about the quick fight they had. It was both disturbing and interesting to see such beings exist. Hollows with a human appearance. Aizen had to be behind this. It made perfect sense. Regardless, there was nothing they could do. Soul Society had pretty much tried to execute them, and if it were not for Urahara, Tessai, and Yoruchi, who knows where they'd be now. They'd leave this matter to Siriitai, for now. The second Naruto and Harabelle entered Hueco Mundo, Naruto spoke. "I'm not letting you take blame for this, you know." Harabelle merely sighed, "As if I would have stopped you. We're both going to be in serious trouble for this, you know." The two Arrancar were in Las Noches within a few minutes, slowly making their way to the main chambers. Much to their surprise, Aizen was not there. Instead, Stark stood in the main hall, waiting for them. "I thought I felt you too." He spoke. "Okay, what happened?" "You weren't due back for several more days." Naruto spoke first, though Harabelle gave him a weak glare. "I got the attention of some renegade soul reapers that called themselves Vizards. We had a minor skirmish with them, but made it out all right." The Primera pinched the bridge of his nose with a gloved hand. "Okay, tell me everything." Harabelle and Naruto together gave their story of the Vizard, and what they had witnessed. Stark seemed to go quiet when Harabelle mentioned the masks and dark aura like that of a hollow that permeated from them. "That's pretty much it," Naruto finished. "I take blame for this, though. Harabelle was simply trying to do her job and make sure I didn't get killed." Stark shook his head, looking to the two blondes before replying in a strained voice. "Well, Aizen-sama is apparently back in Soul Society. He'll know about this for sure. I'll let him know when he returns. Understand that this may not end well for you too, especially you, Naruto, seeing as you were the cause of the mess." Naruto shrugged. "I could have defeated them, but I'd rather not go and shed blood over something stupid like a simple difference between people." The blonde-haired Tercera spoke, her eyes fixed on Naruto as she did so. Stark-san, if Aizen-sama punishes Naruto, let him know that I will be requesting the same punishment as well. Harabel. Don't argue with me, Naruto, she spoke firmly, you are my responsibility, and as such, I won't allow a mistake made that either of us could have fixed be thrown completely on your shoulders. Naruto would have liked to continue arguing, but he realized that he was still a fraction. His opinion truly mattered next to nothing, he just lucked out in having superiors that respected him. Fine. You better make sure that you point out the fact I started the mess though. Naruto spoke, walking down the hall to his own private room. I need a rest. Stark and Harabel watched the blonde fraction exit the chamber, neither really sure if they should tell him to come back and make sure he understood their point on the issue. He's still stubborn as ever, huh? Stark sighed, the kid can be a real pain, but it's hard not to admire his character. You couldn't be more right, replied Harabel. I wish he understood that I'm ultimately the one responsible for his actions. I have to answer to Aizen, not him. Stark gave a grunt, try not to sound too distressed, Harabel. Naruto's more than once confronted Aizen on issues like this with Nell and me. He's not afraid of the man, he's just afraid of what he'll do to those close to him. It makes you wonder how someone like him is practically best friends with someone as savage as Grimmjow. The Primera chuckled, I think Grimmjow wonders the same thing at times. Naruto has a way of digging underneath a person's defenses and exposing them for who they truly are. It's a knack I think he was made with. I remembered during a rare conversation with the Sexta that he said Naruto was always lighthearted, even when they were mere hollows running wild in Hueco Mundo. Why doesn't that surprise me? Harabel shook her head, well, I better go make sure he doesn't go and secretly blow up a few pillars to vent his anger. Eren Yarrow never did forgive Naruto for almost destroying his chambers that day. Wasn't it an accident? Stark asked. That doesn't mean he was forgiven. Harabel replied with a shrug. She gave Stark a quick nod before heading off in the same direction that Naruto had. Out in the white sands of Hueco Mundo, past the grand walls of Las Noches where the moon's glow was the only light available, three figures sat in a circle next to a giant worm-like creature of sorts. Pesh and Dandochaka had long ago found masks to replace their damaged faces, and had greatly changed their physical appearance as well. Pesh now wore a mask that resembled a stag beetle of some sort, while Dandochaka had a tribal-like mask with large, beady eyes. The third member of their group was resting peacefully, the occasional snore being heard. Neliel Tuoderschwank, or Nell, had continued to remain in the childlike state she was in since they were ousted from Las Noches. Her hair was cut short so that it wouldn't get coated in sand as often, after the first year and a half of having to deal with constantly cleaning it out. After finding travel to be tiring out in the sands, Dandochaka had called out one of his battle creatures from within him, Bawabawa. The large, masked worm had become their fourth travel companion, as well as a sort of pet for Nell. The thing that surprised the two the most was the radical changes in Nell's behavior. She whined and complained more about simple things. In the past, she let things happen and deal with them as best as she could. Now, she was more like a child. There were rare moments though in the numerous years of their exile that Nell seemed to show signs of her past self. She would have moments where she asked if either of them had a sword that she could look at. Her two guardians stopped calling her Nell-chan after the first couple of months in their exile. Every time she heard that term of endearment, she would go quiet, but a confused look would appear on her face, as though she were trying to recall something. It wasn't these events though that were most troubling for Dandochaka and Pesh. No, it was when she talked in her sleep that was most perplexing for them. Nell gave a light snore before she rolled over, NNNN. Your whiskers, they're fine. Pesh, Dandochaka, and even Bawabawa knew what she was talking about. It seemed that deep within Nell's mind that only was active when she slept, a part of her hadn't died off. Bawabawa growled in a sad tone. Yeah, she has had a long day today though, don't you know, replied Dandochaka before looking to Pesh. She's been talking in her sleep a lot more often lately. I noticed. The other day she asked me about the number 3, and if it confused me when I thought about it, replied the insectoid masked Arankar, I just hope she doesn't gain her memories back anytime soon. Yeah. The two had managed to keep tabs on Las Noches through other hollows that were more civil in demeanor. It was a well-known fact that Aizen's influence in Hueco Mundo was widespread, and as such, more than a few of the beastly souls were loyal to him. There were also those rare moments when they felt small, almost unnoticeable ripples of Ryatsu from the third and youngest subordinate of Nell. It surprised them, to be honest. Naruto had always had a large amount of power, but it seemed to be growing even greater lately. You know, someday we're going to have to explain things to her. She's going to find out. Dando Chaka stated, a murmur of agreement coming from the giant worm beside them. Yes. I'm prepared to do that when it happens. Maybe we'll find a way to change Nelsama back to who she was someday. For now though, our main priority is keeping her safe. Dando Chaka nodded, agreed. They were quiet again, listening to the faint wind that blew through the area. Another breath exhaled from the young girl as she mumbled in her sleep. Naru, too. Pesh and Dando Chaka both let out a deep sigh while Bawabawa whimpered sadly. Pesh ran a hand through the girl's green locks. Even after all these years, she hadn't let go of Naruto and her memories. He wondered if Naruto was feeling the same. Nel-chan, why are we doing this again? Nel laughed. Your hair is a mess. I'm not allowing you to go around looking like a rat made a nest in it. Nel ran a comb through Naruto's blonde locks, giggling lightly as she worked on a particular knot while he grumbled, I bet the Shinigami don't do this with their subordinates, ow. Nel gave Naruto a stern look, retracting the blunt end of her sword from Naruto's head, enough complaining. I want you to look nice at the meeting today. You know, I don't have to go to the meeting. I'm just a fraction, after all. True, but you're my fraction. She traced a finger down his neckline, and my lover. I think it's a good idea for me to keep you informed. Pesh and Dando Chaka are also responsible about enough to keep track of what's going on. You on the other hand. She gave Naruto a teasing smile. Nel-chan. Naruto whined, earning another giggle from the woman. Now. I thought we agreed that I make the rules here. Naruto stopped speaking as Nel gave him a mildly seductive look. Yes, Nel-sama. Nel tossed the comb to the side, and pressed her lips against his. She pulled away as Naruto grinned at her. You know, you make me feel like a schoolgirl whenever we do this. Nel breathed out, her lips trailing along his neckline. Naruto felt butterflies dance in his stomach as Nel ran a hand down his stomach. Love you too, Nel-chan. Nel looked up, her eyes shining with pure adoration and tenderness. I love you more. Says who? Nel stuck out her tongue in a childish manner, only for it to be caught in Naruto's mouth. She giggled as he pressed her down on the bed, making an assault on her neck as she let out a pleasant moan. Naruto awoke with a gasp. He looked around a bit before rubbing his eyes and sighing, damn it. He got up from his bed, yawning a bit before standing up and looking into the mirror on his wall. He had another dream of her. Naruto growled in frustration as he threw on his vest, pants, and sandals. As much as he loved the dreams he had of her, he also hated the dull pain that came with remembering her. Shaking his head of the thoughts that plagued him, he headed out of his room, deciding to drive himself to exhaustion by training. He noted that it was rather early for anyone else to be awake at this time, so he'd train in the less populated area of Las Noches. The whisker-marked blonde walked down the hall, trying to think of what he could do until Harabel woke up and went looking for him. He was soon outside, the eternally blue sky of Las Noches' internal world making him grin a bit. He knew it wasn't real, but he couldn't help but enjoy it nonetheless. Hueco Mundo was a rather dreary world. Anything that was bright was a luxury to the blonde. May as well get the blood flowing, the blonde thought, knees bending a bit before he jumped off the sandy grounds, kicking up dust clouds as he rocketed into the sky. He began increasing speed as the sands erupted as Naruto's flew by. He laughed as he roared past, easily breaking the sound barrier and phasing from view as he approached his destination. He halted in midair, sending a wave of sand flying as he stopped on the ground, wind flying past him from his speedy flight through Las Noches. He whistled to himself while brushing off sand on his vest, then walked into one of the entrances into Las Noches' interior. Going down a few halls brought Naruto to a door. He knocked twice, waiting for a response. She's bound to be up at this time. Naruto spoke, she's always been an early riser. The door opened to reveal a female Arrancar with shoulder-length purple hair, teardrop markings under each eye, and a mask remnant resembling a hairpin over the left side of her forehead. She seemed to be in her sleeping attire still, and was holding a cup of tea in her hand. She gave a yawn before her expression changed to a smile. Naruto-kun. What are you doing here this early? Naruto grinned as the Privarana Espada gave the taller blonde a peck on the cheek. Morning, Surachi-chan. Hope I didn't come by at a bad time. Naruto had come to know Surachi Thunderwitch through Nel, who had mentioned that the purple-haired Arrancar was at one point an espada. After Nell disappeared, Naruto had gone to Surachi for comfort and support. He didn't show it, but Nell's absence had left a huge void in his daily life. She knew that she could never replace the green-haired Tercera, but she, like so many others in Las Noches, had come to appreciate Naruto. She wouldn't admit it to anyone aside from the blonde, but she really cared for him. A bad time, she laughed a bit. Naruto, you know you're welcome here whenever. Come in, already. Surachi walked in while Naruto followed behind, shutting the door. Surachi had a rather quaint abode. It was definitely a woman's place, but it wasn't tacky. She liked to look good, yes, but she wasn't one to worry about too many materialistic possessions. I wanted to talk about something that's been bugging me for a while now. I'd ask Stark or Harabel, but they've got enough to worry about right now as it is. Grimjow's a good friend, but he's not one to go to about this kind of stuff. Surachi set down her tea and gave Naruto a serious look as she took a seat in a chair across from Naruto. What do you need to talk about? I may have gotten Harabel into serious trouble yesterday, replied the blonde. Surachi gave Naruto a critical look, trying to see what she could read from him by his facial expression. Go on. She spoke, her tone comforting yet concerned. We fought some group of renegade Shinigami who had hollow-like powers. They called themselves Vizards or whatever. I'm not sure what to make of it, but I know that our fight could have been avoided if I didn't reveal myself. Naruto let out a sigh as he shook his head. Why did you do that? A little plus girl was being attacked by a common hollow. I killed the hollow to save the little girl. I felt compelled to. Surachi placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I can understand that. This isn't the first time you've gone and done something like this. What's bugging you about it? Aizen asked us that we don't reveal our location unless necessary. I don't think that counted as necessary. You're worried that you'll be found out by Soul Society. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Naruto, you said these Shinigami were renegades, right? Well, I assumed they were. If they are, then I doubt they're popular with Soul Society. Chances are they won't reveal this to Suriitii. She rubbed a thumb across one of his whiskered cheeks. I swear, you're too sweet to be an Arrancar sometimes. I still feel guilty. I put not only myself in danger, but Harabel as well. How do I go and explain that? She trusted in me, and I went and ruined Dash. Hey, enough of that now. Surachi spoke, cutting him off as she grabbed his chin and gave him a stern look. Stop worrying so much about that kind of stuff. You don't even know if you're still in trouble. The blonde sighed. I suppose you're right. I just needed someone to speak to and vent some frustration out on. Surachi raised an eyebrow. Vent some frustration out on? How did you plan on doing that? She gave Naruto a lewd smile. I don't know, Naruto-kun, I think you're a bit young for my tastes, but I suppose I'm willing to help a young Dash. Gah! No, nothing like that, Surachi-chan. Yeesh, get your mind out of the gutter. Surachi laughed at the somewhat embarrassed and annoyed look on the blonde's face. Relax, Naruto-kun, I'm just teasing you. Though the idea isn't that bad either. Ugh. You're such a pervert, Surachi-chan, replied the blonde as the older Arrancar gave him a teasing grin. Only for you. So, I suppose you want to do a bit of training? Naruto's face stretched into a foxy grin. You know me too well. Very well, let me get dressed, and we'll head over to Tres Cifras, she replied, getting up and sashaying a little while heading over to her closet. She looked to Naruto, smiling a bit as she picked out her usual puffy style of dress. You going to watch me change or something, Naruto-kun? Naruto stuttered a bit before heading out of her home, grumbling about stupid women and their mind games while closing the door. Surachi laughed a bit as she changed into her clothing. It wasn't a big secret that Surachi and Naruto had a close friendship. Nothing romantic, though more than once the two would seem to be otherwise. She had come to admire Naruto's compassionate spirit in the same way Nilil had, and after the former Tercera disappeared from Las Noches, she had promised herself to help Naruto in any way she could. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the vast amount of spiritual energy he had, and the nearly limitless potential that came with it. Maybe it was because he continued to respect her as a superior, despite the fact that she was not a true espada anymore. Maybe she just felt a strange weakness to blondes. She wasn't sure, but she felt like helping him regardless. She knew he easily outclassed her in strength as of now, but she remembered at one point in time when she was capable of giving him difficulty in spars. Those days were long past them now, though. She had watched the boy grow up into a fine Arrancar. She took pride in the fact that she, along with a few of the older Arrancar, were responsible for that growth. Kind of gave her exclusive bragging rights whenever she met with other Arrancar in Las Noches. Not only that, but it also meant that Naruto had placed her among his list of friends that he held dear. Sorochi opened the door to the hall, smirking at Naruto, who was currently leaning against the corridor wall. Ready? Sorochi grinned, her unusual Zanpakuta she named Galandrina in her hands. You bet. The two headed towards the chamber filled with the giant red pillars, both looking forward to killing some time with a good fight and decent workout. Naruto, as much as I respect your ability to fight, what you did was reckless. I would like to hear from you now as to why you decided to help a mere plus from being devoured. Naruto got up from his kneeling position and nodded. Yes, Aizen-sama. The blonde cleared his throat and looked the powerful Shinigami captain in the eyes. I have a strong dislike for hollows eating human souls. That's it. Aizen raised an eyebrow as he propped his chin on one hand. Really? Yes. The man on the throne shook his head with a quiet laugh. You have a strong sense of morals, Naruto. I'm worried though. If Harabel or one of the other Espada ordered you to attack a Shinigami that had done no harm to you or one of the others, would you still attack? Probably. Probably? Naruto shrugged. There is a thin line I draw in fighting, Aizen-sama. If I believe that the fight is senseless, I may leave it to the others. Besides, I know for a fact that Harabel-sama or Stark-sama would not be likely to attack an innocent soul without cause. A Shinigami is usually a different story, though. You continue to amuse me, Naruto. He nodded as he stood up. Very well. I will look over this incident in Karakura. In fact, I believe I know who those renegade Shinigami were. I wouldn't worry too much about them and the possibility of informing Soul Society. You know who they are? Was one of them a man named Shinji? The whiskered Arrancar nodded. Yes. He seemed to be pretty strong. Aizen gave a smile to the blonde. He was my superior a while back. Wait, what? Why do they have those powers? Aizen waved a hand in a dismissive manner. Don't worry about that, Naruto. I'll explain if they decide to interfere with my plans. For now, I shall respect their neutrality and not get them involved. Aizen then walked down from his throne and continued towards the exit, a cue for Naruto to follow. Tell me, Naruto, where do you believe you stand in terms of power in Las Noches? The blonde blinked, a bit put off by the sudden change of topic, but relieved as well. He thought for a moment before replying. Honestly, I'd say around the rank of Septima. I'm not as strong as Grimmjow, since he's usually the one to win our spars unless I can trick him. I believe it may stay that way for a long time. He's always been more powerful than me. Aizen nodded while they headed down one of the less used hallways. That's a fairly humble opinion, Naruto. Although, it also means that you are aware of your capabilities. He looked to the blonde and gave him a calm smile. I have a proposition that I believe you'd be interested in. The blonde looked to the leader of the Espada, quirking an eyebrow. A proposition? Yes. It would be a first time for the Espada. Aizen replied, looking to the dunes as he continued. Naruto, I would like to offer you the position of the Medio Espada. The blonde paused for a moment. The half Espada? What is that? You'll still retain the official ranking of a fraction, but you'll also be able allowed certain privileges that the Espada have. Like what, Aizen-sama? Sasuke Aizen placed a hand under his chin while nodding. Right. Well, for instance, the lesser fraction and Arrancar are under your command during certain circumstances. You'll have the right to use such techniques exclusive to the Espada, such as the Kaja negation, and have authority over the Minos Grande, Privaron Espada, and the lesser Arrancar and Hollows. Wait, so I'll have the ability to lead a team, more or less. Yes, I suppose that's a way of putting it. You have a knack for simplifying explanations, don't you? Aizen looked to the shorter blonde. So, what do you say? One question, will I still be under the authority of Harabel? Ah. Another perk of being the Medio is that while you are under the direct command of the Tercera, you can also work alongside other Espada should the situation call for it. You won't have authority over the Espada, but at the same time, the Espada outside of the first 6 do not have direct authority over you, unless I or Harabel state they do during a mission or when there is a need for such things. Does that clarify things? The blonde smiled a bit. For the most part, yes. I can exercise Espada-ranked powers, and though I'm above a normal fraction for the most part in terms of privileges and independence, I don't have the ranking or authority of an Espada. The top 6 Espada also still have authority over me. Again, you managed to simply things. Yes, that's correct. So, do you accept this proposition? Naruto grinned. I'll give it a shot. Sure. Good. Then I'll hold a meeting tomorrow to inform the other Espada. The following day Naruto sat in his own chair by Harabel as the Espada waited for Aizen to enter the room. Naruto noted that the large, rectangular table that they all sat around was rather smooth. He seriously wondered how the hell everything managed to be constructed so cleanly, despite the lack of any real tools for cutting stone or smooth surfaces. He decided he'd have to chalk that up to the mysterious history of Las Noches. Aizen entered the chamber, smiling as he approached the errand car. Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm sure you're all curious as to why I called you before me today, as well as the reason behind Uzumaki being here among you. Aizen then gave a brief explanation of Naruto's new situation of power to the Espada, receiving a mix of responses. Stark gave an amused look to Naruto, smirking a bit when Naruto looked to him. Grimmjow laughed to himself while Neutra glowered. For the most part, Naruto wasn't surprised by the various looks. He was, after all, Naruto Uzumaki, the most powerful fraction in Las Noches. He never received a true position of authority. The meeting was only 15 minutes long, namely because Aizen had to quell Neutra's complaints of a mere fraction being able to exercise such independence. It was much to Naruto's surprise when Grimmjow told the Quinta to shut his trap, saying Naruto had more talent in his left pinky finger than Neutra had altogether. The blonde was pretty sure he heard Harabel stifle a laugh while Stark snorted briefly in laughter at the look on Neutra's features as the sexta told the Quinta off. As they exited the chambers, Naruto felt a slap on the shoulders. He looked to his side to see Grimmjow give Naruto a brief grin, flickering between challenging and proud. Naruto knew right then and there that he had gained a bit more respect in the blue-haired Arrancar's book. Figures. Aizen had to bribe you into taking a position with only half the responsibilities if he wanted you anywhere near Espada ranking. Grimmjow joked, earning a semi-annoyed look from the blonde. Unlike you? Grimmjow snickered. I guess this means we'll be giving the world hell together more often, eh? Grimmjow, it will take a lot of convincing on your part to get Harabel and the others to let you take me out of Las Noches, let alone Hueco Mundo. Naruto replied with a grin. Grimmjow just laughed while getting a crick out of his neck. Ha! So, what do you plan on doing with this power? Not sure. Whenever we get Aizen's supposedly existent plans off the ground, I'm sure I'll be busy. I've never really fought any Shinigami, to be honest. Not that I'd like to anytime soon, but it'll be worth my time, right? Grimmjow and Naruto making plans, that can only mean trouble, spoke Stark as he watched the two from a distance with Harabel. I swear, you'd think the two were brothers. Harabel nodded. I have to admit though, they tend to keep each other balanced. Naruto's a rather compassionate soul, yet when he's with Grimmjow, he's more in the mood for fighting and improvement. Grimmjow is definitely a ruthless fighter, but Naruto tends to calm him down a bit. That's my view of things at least. Stark nodded while laughing a bit. It's ironic, if you think about it. Naruto is already capable of using the Gran Rei Zero, yet only now is he receiving the right to actually use it. Yes, that is a good point. Want to know something even more ironic? What? Harabel gave Stark a mildly amused look, her green irises twinkling in silent laughter. The very man who pointed out that fact is also the same one who taught Naruto the technique to begin with. The Primera was quiet for a few seconds, as though he suddenly remembered something. Geesh, you're right. Looks like I'm the only one to blame. Stark shook his head while chuckling. The kid would have found out about the technique one way or another and begged me to teach him anyway. That is probably true. Harabel acknowledged the higher-ranked Espada's point. You know that Naruto is going to try and coax one of us to go with him on a mission to Karakura just so he can spend a week there. Yeah, I imagine he will. Though, the place isn't half bad for a human settlement. Stark replied, I hear they have some kind of new music. It sounds pretty good, though I doubt it'll really make any real progress. Harabelle, who was actually a closet music enthusiast, raised an eyebrow. Oh really? What's it called? I think Naruto said it's not official yet, but something like jazz and blues, but I could be wrong. Either way, it's nothing special, it'll likely fade as country music become more popular. Stark gave a smile. Naruto says this jazz and blues will be revolutionary in a few years. Not sure if I should take his word or not. Harabelle and Stark continued down the halls, debating on the various events going on in the human world. It makes no sense. Sakura stood in her small office, looking over the readings presented to her by one of the unseated officers of the 4th Squad. I was told by Anohana Taishu to present these to you. They came straight from the SRDI. Sakura was quiet for a moment. These readings all appeared within a few seconds of each other. All except for this one. The pink-haired Shinigami analyzed the graph a bit. This one in particular appeared about 3 minutes before the other Ryatsu signatures. It's likely that this individual sparked the other energy signatures to appear. She got up from her seat, bringing the chart with her. The young unseated Shinigami stood at attention. What are your orders, Sakura-senpai? Seeing as this chart is a few days old, I can assume these presences are either gone or in hiding again. You said that the search party sent to Karakura found nothing? Correct. The 4th Squad's leader of the Combat and Field Medic Corps side, these readings are abnormal, even for Hollow standards. I'm going to have to up the training regime for my teams if I plan on them surviving at all against such powerful beings. She turned to the younger Soul Reaper. Inform Isane Fukutechu that I wish to speak with her later about increasing training for the Combat and Field Medic Corps. The unseated Shinigami gave a bow before dashing off to inform Isane Kotetsu. Sakura looked over the reading of the first Ryatsu signature, trying to think of what could cause such a power to appear. A Vasto Lord would have no reason to attack Karakura. The amount of spiritual energy there would barely suffice as a reasonable source for them. A Juchas class hollows. Well, no, they don't usually appear in such numbers. She set the chart on her desk and massaged her temples. This wasn't good. Such beings in one of Soul Society's largest patrol areas was a problem. It meant there were increased chances of attacks on Shinigami. With increased chances of attack came the need for healing and treatment. She would have to both improve and increase the training she was putting her teams through. Her subdivision had grown significantly in the time she had started it, now consisting of close to 47 Shinigami, not including Isane and herself. Sakura would have to go to the academy again and try and advertise the 4th Division again to possible recruits. Sakura? The Haruno girl looked up to see the silver-haired woman that was Isane Kotetsu at her door. Isane Fukutechu, I was hoping to talk to you. She smiled while giving a quick bow. Thanks for coming so quickly. Isane gave her friend a smile. Well, of course, anything involving the Combat and Field Medic Corps is worth discussing. I take it you got the readings from the SRDI as well? Yes, and they don't settle well with me. Isane nodded. Anohana Taishu says she's seen powers like those before, but it was a long time ago. Really? Yes, but the exact source she was unsure. She felt them more than anything. Hollows of a great sort. One in particular on that chart bugged her especially. Which one? Isane picked up the chart on Sakura's desk and searched it over before laying her index finger over a particular signature. This one, it looks the closest to the one that appeared first. They both appear to be hollow-like, but the one that seems similar to the first one seems to also be one of the more powerful ones that were present. You know, I didn't notice that at first. What do you think that means? I'm not sure, Isane replied, handing the chart back. I imagine it won't be the last time we encounter these kinds of readings, though I hope it won't be anytime soon. Same here, Isane. Sakura and Isane soon left the office, walking outside of the 4th Squad headquarters. So, how has Kion been? Isane laughed. Oh, she's doing great. The academy is going well, and she will be out in a few more years. I imagine she's a likely recruit for the Gotii right off the bat? Likely. She's a bit more enthusiastic in terms of combat compared to me, but she never got into healing like I did, the elder Kotetsu sister responded. She should do well in the end though. She's a Kotetsu. How can she not do well? Sakura grinned teasingly. Isane, you're probably worried sick about her all the time, aren't you? The vice captain of the 4th pouted. Well, of course I am, she's my baby sister. How can I not? Sakura shook her head. You're such a worrywart, Isane. You are too. Isane retorted, you're just better at hiding it. Remember back when you first entered the 4th squad? You were a stuttering mess when you met me. Sakura paused for a moment. That's because you were a big talk among the 4th squad hopefuls. Next to Unohana, you proved to be the most popular one we talked about. The two laughed a bit as they headed out to the gardens surrounding one of the administrative buildings. Sakura noted another figure sitting in the small clearing, a small blanket lying across the grass for a picnic. Sakura smiled as the lone other figures noticed them and waved, "Momo-chan." "Hey!" The shorter female Shinigami got up and ran to embrace Sakura in a friendly hug. The two younger Shinigami laughed while Isane smiled brightly. It was a well-known fact among the 4th and 5th division members in the Gotei 13 that Sakura and Momo Hinamori were best of friends. As such, the two made an effort to spend at least a few hours every week with each other. "Sakura, you're early. I didn't get a chance to get everything set up yet." Momo laughed as the three women sat down on the blanket. Momo handed Sakura and Isane each a rice cake and a cup of chilled tea from a canteen. "So, what's the latest from the 4th squad?" Isane spoke first. "Well, we've got the recruitment week coming up. Sakura and I are going to see what she can do about increasing the numbers for the combat and field medic corps. It's a bit difficult though, we're still a fairly new organization, and we're still relatively small." Momo gave a nod. "I understand what you mean. Being a healer is hard work." Kira wasn't always a member of the 3rd division, he was a member of the 4th squad for some time. Sakura nodded. "Yeah. It's not easy at all. Lots of extra studying after hours at the academy, plus you have to learn how to merge your spiritual energy with another person's in order to heal their injuries." The women chatted more on the local happenings for a good half hours before Isane stated she had a meeting with Unohana in a few minutes. Soon Momo and Sakura were alone. "So, is Nara-san still fighting off the promotion for 5th seat in Division 10? Sakura groaned. "Yes. It's gotten so bad that Ranjiku's been asking me if offering him out on a date would be effective." "Well?" Momo asked, waiting for a response. Asai escaped Sakura. Shikamaru said that Ranjiku is too troublesome to go on a date with, and besides, he stated that's close to bribery. Momo laughed. "He'll give in eventually. Ranjiku has her ways." "True, but Shikamaru didn't graduate the academy in 4 years for no reason. He could have graduated sooner." Momo replied. "Yeah, like 2. He just didn't really pay attention until his 3rd year. For your information, I did start picking my grades back up in the 2nd year." The two turned to see a rather bored-looking man with his hair tied into a messy ponytail. "Shikamaru, you're late. We finished eating a few minutes ago." The newcomer gave Momo a shrug. "Yeah, well, blame Matsumoto for my tardiness then. She was offering me a free round at the bar tonight. Shika, you should give her a chance." Momo said with a slight pout. "She does care about you." "I know, that's what's troublesome about her. She doesn't stop bothering me about spending time with her. I've got enough going on with the paperwork." "You think that the higher-seated officers would be working with the majority of paperwork? Shika, you've been the 9th-seated officer for almost 20 years. You should have expected that you'd get more paperwork with seniority." Sakura chided. "Besides, I think Ranjiku is purposefully piling on the work so you'll ask for a promotion." Shikamaru blinked several times before grumbling. "I thought she had something to do with it. Guess there's no way around it." He sat down and took the offered rice cake. "Heard the latest from the SRDI? Yeah. Sakura's got plans all set up for her teams." Momo replied. The 9th-seated officer gave a nod, chewing on his rice cake before taking a cup of tea. "Yeah. All the young members in 10 are in a mild panic right now. You know how often they send out 10 squad members on patrol. That's why you're around, Shika. You're one of the best tacticians of our generation." Sakura pointed out, getting a grunt from Shikamaru. "I still don't know why you two think I should be moving up to 5th seat." Sakura set down her tea and gave Shika a sharp look. "Shikamaru Nara, if you think that using the old 'I'm lazy and unmotivated' routine is going to work, then you've got another thing coming. All of us know that you're more than qualified for 5th seat. Ever since you awakened your Shurkai, you've only improved." Shikamaru opened his mouth to protest, but Sakura continued, "Don't deny that you have been. I've seen you practicing at night in the private training grounds." The Nara boy closed his mouth and looked away. "You've got me on that one. He got upside while rolling his shoulders a bit. I guess I better go and talk to Ranjiku before she starts threatening to smother me. A rice cake hit Shikamaru in the face before he brushed off the grains of rice and headed off. Good luck, Shikamaru. Momo called out while the Nara boy gave a lazy wave before disappearing with a Shuunpa. See? He's even faster than a ninth seed officer should be. Sakura sighed. I figured he was holding back in the last seeded officer sparring tournament. Sakura, he was fighting Hisagi. I don't think he wanted to go all out. He's not at that level of strength. I suppose you're right, Momo. It still doesn't excuse him for being lazy. Sakura gave a nod to herself while getting up with Momo and cleaning up their picnic. I better get going. I have training with my group in an hour, so I've got to prepare the training area. Later, Momo-chan. Momo waved goodbye to her friend, then finished folding up the blanket and heading back to the 5th Division headquarters. Meanwhile, at the office of the vice captain of the 10th squad, Ranjiku gave a huge grin while looking over a document of acceptance that seemed to be filled out in a rather sloppy handwriting. You know, Shikakuin, promotional acceptance letters are usually a lot neater. Shikamaru shrugged in his usual nonchalant manner while leaning against a wall. Sorry, Matsumoto Fukuteichu. I really just figured that you've been bugging me long enough where it didn't matter what my handwriting looked like. Ranjiku laughed while signing the document and putting it in a folder with other documents. She took out another paper, signed it and then handed it to the 9th-seated Soul Reaper. Okay, just sign where it says you accept all duties that are associated with the position, and that you accept responsibility for any actions you take while under the title of 5th seat. Shikamaru looked over the document, reading over the fine print, and raised an eyebrow. This is for the 5th seat? It looks more like something for a 3rd-seated officer. Ranjiku beamed at this. Yeah, the 5th seat actually works closer with the vice captain than the 3rd or 4th-seated officers. That means we get to work together on managing the squad. Isn't that great? The Nara blinked several times. If this is just a ruse to get me to go with you to the bar more often, then dash. Ranjiku pointed to the 3rd line of the list of duties while grinning. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow as she read it off. The 5th-seated officer will work alongside the vice captain in both managerial and social duties among the division. As such, the vice captain is allowed to suggest activities that other members may partake in to maintain the harmony of the squad's morale. You've got to be kidding me. I'm being forced to attend social events with you? Ranjiku placed her hands under her chin while grinning. Come on, Shikakuin. It'll be fun. I'll make sure the other guys are extremely jealous of you while we're at the bars. We'll have a blast. I promise. In all due honesty, Shikamaru didn't mind Ranjiku. He just wished she'd lay off on the flirting a bit. Fine. I guess I may as well take the title. I can always resign if I want to. Ranjiku laughed happily as Shikamaru signed it. Matsumoto was truly hoping that Shikamaru would accept the position. He had a lot of potential, and she found him to be a rather laid-back individual, just like herself. The only difference was that she was a party-goer. He wasn't. Thank you, Shikakuin. We haven't had a 5th seat in a few years now. I was hoping someone with your skills would be able to step up and take it. She stood up and walked around her small desk. So, what do you say we go celebrate? Celebrate? Ranjiku said nothing more, though Shikamaru felt her wrap an arm around him as she hummed a tune, happily pulling the younger, more reluctant Shinigami towards the local tavern down the street. He had a feeling this was going to happen. A few decades had passed since Naruto obtained the title of the Medio Espada, about 40 years or so to be exact. Naruto had since been to Karakura approximately 100 times, using the continued disguise of his Jigai. Harabel and him had developed an even stronger bond between each other since they had become part of a team. Naruto, what are you thinking about? The blonde Frachin turned to Harabel with a smile. It's been more than 40 years since we met. I like thinking in increments of decades, so I just realized that. In another 10 years, it'll be about half a century since we met. Pretty cool, huh? Harabel gave a nod while sitting in her spot in the meditative chambers of the Tercera's abode. You've matured a bit since we met. Only a bit? Harabel opened a single eye. Yes. You're still a child at heart. Is that a bad thing? Naruto asked with a small smile. Harabel gave a quiet laugh. No, not at all, Naruto. I'm glad to have you as my companion. Although, I'm afraid you've rubbed off on me a bit. That new music called rock has become more interesting in the past several years. Hey, those humans know how to play electric guitar. I have to hand it to them. It's a shame Aizen doesn't let us bring instruments back here with us most of the time. I doubt you'd play well. I'd probably sing, you could play guitar. Harabelle shook her head, doubtful. In fact, I'd rather hear you play guitar than sing. You're cruel, Harabelle-chan. Naruto spoke, mocking a hurt expression on his face. I thought you were my friend. Harabelle unfolded her legs from her meditative position. I am your friend, hence the reason why I'm being truthful about your singing voice. I've heard you sing when we are in our Jigai back in the human world. It's not something I like thinking about that much. Naruto gaped at Harabelle as she stifled a small chuckle. I'll remember that the next time I go to a concert in Karakura and you want tickets. Harabelle would have responded, but was interrupted by the sound of knocking. Naruto got up and opened the door to reveal none other than Ulquiorra. Hey, Ulquiorra, how have you been? Ulquiorra seemed to ignore Naruto's greeting as he looked past the blonde to Harabelle. There has been a call for all Espada to attend a meeting in Aizen-sama's main chambers in 5 minutes. Harabelle stood up and nodded. Very well. I'll be there. So, Ulquiorra, why don't you ever talk to me, eh? Ulquiorra paused for a moment before turning around. Uzumaki, you are perhaps the most immature Arrancar I've ever met, next to Grinjao and Yami. If it wasn't for that fact that you actually are valuable to Aizen-sama, I would have eliminated you ages ago. The fourth Espada headed down the corridor as Naruto continued smirking. What? No hug? Hey, don't be that way, Ulquiorra. You're better than that. Enough, Naruto. You know as well as I do that Ulquiorra's temper is not something to be trifled with, spoke the Tercera Espada as she headed out the door with Naruto. Pfft, he's got no emotion to speak of. I doubt he knows how to be angry. If he just lightened up a bit, then maybe I'd stop bothering him so much. Try to remember that not all Espada are as joyful as you, Naruto. I do recall you once being distant with me, Harabelle. You warmed up to me in a short amount of time, right? What of Nilio-sama? Was she as tolerant of you and your antics when you first met each other? Oh, Naruto began with a laugh, she loved my antics. In fact, I'm pretty sure she ended up influencing me a bit. Still, I believe you're starting to find my jokes better as well, right, Harabelle? Harabelle shook her head as they reached the door to the main chambers. Naruto may have been seeing things, but Harabelle gave a faint blush as she spoke. If I didn't have as much patience when I first met you. Her rant was left unfinished as the two approached earshot range of the other Arrancar. Aizen gave a smile to the final two Arrancar that entered the chamber. Good, now that we're all here, I believe I can begin this meeting. He walked down the steps of his throne as he continued. I'm sure most of you are aware that I have unspoken plans with Soul Society and a certain object called the Hogyoku. This object will allow me to create more powerful Arrancar through artificial means. You mean you plan on making Arrancar without natural process, spoke Sail Aparograns, the current Octava Espada, an interesting idea. What exactly does this object do? Aizen smiled. It wasn't my invention, but from what I understand, it breaks down the boundary between Hollow and Shinigami. You all are prime examples of this, though I had some influence in the Shinigamification process by using my powers to speed up the process and amplify your potential. With the Hogyoku, I can do this without as much effort. It will be able to speed up the process for creating Arrancar. Will they be as strong as us? Asked Stark in a semi-interested tone. It depends on the Hollow, Stark. I will be honest, I have little understanding of Hogyoku's full potential, and until I have obtained it, I will be unable to discern such matters. It will be quite some time before I start putting my plans into action. However, the Hogyoku is only a small part of this plan. The main objective of this plan will be where you all are involved. This is my plan. The smile on Aizen's face didn't sit well with Naruto as he heard the speech for a plan that would come to shake the foundations of Soul Society and Hueco Mundo in the years to come. Chapter 5: Objectives and Obstacles. Two lone figures hopped over the rooftops of one of Karakura's residential areas. They stopped, both landing on light posts with unnatural grace, even for the most athletic of humans. You sense it, Rukia? Hard not to. It's growing more powerful. Rukia Kochiki looked to her only other companion in the human world. Sakura had started the ritual practice among the 4th Division to have a healer accompany a Soul Reaper on patrol, thus making the risk of attack less of a danger. It's not a very noteworthy hollow, though. We should split up, see if we can track it down before and flank it from either side. It's heading away from us. Sakura spoke. The Kuchiki girl gave the Rosette Shinigami a small smile. Sakura, are you actually looking forward to a battle? That's so unbecoming of a 4th squad member, especially a seated officer. Sakura just laughed, coming from the girl who supposedly has a reputation for maintaining her cool at all times and being temperamental at the same time. You should talk about being unbecoming as far as Shinigami go. I am not temperamental. Rukia snapped back. Now let's go. Ichigo Kurosaki was a teenager of 15 years of age. An average male who did well in school, took care of his sisters, and saw spirits. Okay, so maybe that made him a bit abnormal, but he was used to it by now. He had come to the conclusion that he had to have something odd about him to balance out his not-so-outstanding life. The moon was bright tonight, he noted. He felt something in the air that sent a chill down his spine every now and then. He didn't like it. It meant that supernatural stuff was going on. Thump! Ichigo rolled over in his bed as he heard the sound of something hitting his floor. He looked to see a woman with black hair and a traditional outfit of days long past standing in the middle of his room. She had a sword strapped around her waist, and white socks with sandals. It's close. The petite woman noted as she looked around. Hopefully Sakura won't find it first. If she unleashes her Shurikai, I don't think this neighborhood could stand the magnitude from her attacks. Hey, who the hell are you? Rukia didn't even seem to notice Ichigo as she continued talking to herself. It couldn't have gone too far. Are you deaf? What are you doing in my room? Ichigo yelled. Rukia looked to the boy for a brief moment before walking out of his room. Hey! Ichigo decided that he may as well act by physical means, seeing as she didn't seem to take verbal communication too well. He kicked her in the small of the back with the flat of his foot, sending her down the steps. She landed in a heap before getting up with a groan. Gah! Damn it! What the hell is your dash? She paused in the midst of her tirade, her eyes wide. Wait, you can see me? Of course, I can. How could anyone not, with that outfit you're wearing? What are, an escapee from the local circus? Rukia felt her temper flare. I happen to be a Shinigami. You would be smart to watch your tongue, kid. Kid? You're probably about my age, not to mention a lot shorter than me too. Ichigo fired back. I'll have you know that I've lived about 10 of your lifetimes already, and dash, she cut herself off as she heard a scream from outside. That's Yuzu! Ichigo yelled. He was about to bolt out the door when another figure came limping into the house. Ichigo immediately recognized the figure, Karen. Ichigo. Karen, one of the 2 younger twin sisters of Ichigo, spoke. Yuzu, she's in trouble. Something is out there, I got a way to warn. She collapsed in a heap as she passed out. Karen! Ichigo ran to her side, as did Rukia. Rukia looked her over once before nodding. She's fine, just unconscious. Stay here while I go help your sister. No way. She's in trouble. I need to dash. Bakudo number 1, sigh. Ichigo felt his arms lock up behind his back as he fell to the ground. Hey! What did you do to me? Relax, you're trapped within my binding spell. It's only a level 1 spell, but even a human with spiritual awareness like yours shouldn't be able to be freed from it. Now stay here until I help your sister and defeat that hollow. Rukia wasted no time and headed out to the street in front of the Kurosaki residence. The Kurosaki teen raised his head up as he began to get up. Hey, hold on. Let me out of this magic or whatever, now. Sakura paused as she felt a rise in a spiritual pressure that had slipped her senses until now. She looked to the direction it was coming from, and her eyes widened. Rukia. Damn it, please let her be okay. With a burst of speed, Sakura disappeared in a flickering afterimage. She landed on a building for just a second to give another burst of speed, then disappeared a second time. She landed on the street where she believed the Ryatsu was flooding from, and gasped. There was a rather large hollow standing in the street, a gash in its mouth from a blade, which was most likely Rukia's doing. Before the hollow stood a single person, a male to be exact, with orange hair and a very large blade. Who is that? I didn't think we had another unit patrolling Karakura tonight. Sakura's eyes scanned the area, and she noted a woman leaning against a fence lining the street. She wore a snow-white kimono all the souls in Rakangai wore upon entering Soul Society. Her hair was black. Rukia! Sakura called out, racing to her friend's side. She crouched down by her side, and did a quick analysis of her. What happened? I can hardly sense any reiatsu from you. Rukia looked to the mysterious Soul Reaper before them. I gave that boy over there my powers. I was heavily injured, and would have been destroyed if I hadn't done so. He was able to see me, and he broke out of a basic binding spell by sheer willpower and spiritual energy. That's next to impossible. How could Sakura's thoughts were interrupted as a roar of pain echoed throughout the air. She looked to see the male slicing clean through the hollow's mask, causing it to disappear. He turned around to face the two for a moment. I beat the hollow, Rukia. Rukia gave a weak smile. I see that. Well done, Ichigo. Sakura looked to Rukia for a moment, her eyes trying to discern her friend's expression. How did such a weak hollow injure you? I got in the way. Sakura looked to the boy named Ichigo. What do you mean you got in the way? His sister was in danger of being killed. He did the only thing that should come natural to a big brother, and wanted to protect her. I had to stop the hollow with my own body in order to protect him. For a moment, Sakura felt pity for Ichigo, but it was soon replaced by the logical part of her mind. She walked over to the orange-haired teen, and jabbed a finger into his chest. Do you have any idea what the ramifications will be for what has happened here? Do you? Ichigo actually lost his balance a bit as she continued poking him in the chest with her finger. She was strong for a girl of her size. Hey! I beat the hollow, didn't I? What's there to worry about? For starters, Rukia could. She stopped and let out a sigh, looking to her weakened friend. Damn it, Rukia. You should have at least unlocked your Shurikai if things got bad. I would have been here in a moment's notice. Rukia got up. Relax, Sakura, there's nothing to worry about. I'll just wait for my powers to return in a week or so. Okay, what do I do in the meantime? They'll notice two Shinigami missing a lot sooner than just one. Rukia bit her lip. I think we need to pay a certain someone a visit. The Rosette's features were blank for a second before understanding dawned them. Oh no. We are not going to see him. It's bad enough that he's doing business underneath Soul Society's nose. We don't need to get involved in the black market and have crimes for abnormal involvement of mortals on our head. What other choice do we have, Sakura? The Kuchiki girl had a point. She sighed, and looked to Ichigo. You. Me? Yes, you. Until we're gone from Karakura, you'll be taking over for Rukia. Is that understood? Wait, what? No way. I'm not going to go running around and go after things like that. Perhaps I didn't make myself clear. You'll be taking over for Rukia, or you'll become my new training dummy. She slammed her fist into the road, causing a decent-sized crater to form. Her smile was defiant of her intentions. Okay? Ichigo looked to the cracked road, then to Rukia, who gave a similar smile. He decided there was no way out of this. Oh well, at least he'd have something to do after school now. If you asked Naruto about destiny, he'd probably tell you it was non-existent, and that everyone was able to carve out their own paths in life. Still, he often wondered if perhaps he should reanalyze his ideals in that area. Surely some greater power liked interrupting his naps whenever he got comfortable. Naruto, you dolt. Where are you? The blonde-haired Arrancar of almost 260 years in age groaned as he heard a voice he had come to associate with both annoyance and joy. Quite the unusual combination, if you thought about it. Up here, Apache. A female Arrancar with dark blue hair, and the most unique pair of eyes he'd ever seen. Her left pupil was a deep amber color with a red ring surrounding her eye, much like Naruto's. Her right eye was an icy blue hue. She wore a standard Arrancar outfit with shortened sleeves and gloves. Among other things of note, her mask was like a horn that rested on the top part of her forehead. What are you doing up there? Harabel-sama says we have training, and you're napping, shouted the female Arrancar. Yep. Apache grumbled as she used a quick sonito to appear on top of the windowsill that Naruto was resting in. I should kick your butt for being such a lazy bum. It's embarrassing to know that you're my superior. Naruto gave a fake pout. Apache-chan, I thought we were friends. Besides, you and me are both Harabel's fraction, so it's not that bad, right? The female Arrancar pinched the bridge of her nose. I should have made Sunday through Sunday find you. Maybe. It's more fun to rile you up, though. Grrrrrrrrr. Apache restrained a shaking fist. Come on, Harabel-sama's waiting. Naruto stretched lazily. Yes, ma'am. The two were walking down the corridor to the giant chamber where the Tercera and her fraction sparred in only a few minutes' time. Naruto looked to Apache, and gave her a smile as she looked to him. She turned away with an annoyed look, though not nearly as angry this time. How has your Siro practice been going? Apache turned to the blonde and gave a sigh. Better. Not fast enough with generating enough power, but it's better. Don't worry too much about it. I tend to favor Bala over Siro, to be honest. Besides, no one should rely too heavily on any one skill. Your hand-to-hand is decent for someone with your level of experience. Give it another couple of decades and I'm sure you'll be a force to be reckoned with in Las Noches. I am a force to be reckoned with, moron. Apache said in an annoyed tone. Naruto just laughed while giving a half-hearted apology. The two entered the immense chamber constructed no more than 5 years ago after Harabel expanded the group under her command. The other two fraction were waiting quietly as Naruto and Apache entered. Was he sleeping again? Asked a fraction with long green hair and a flowing white dress that had sleeves covering her hands up. She had a hair clip like mask remnant resting on the left part of her head, and 2 pink dots underneath her left eye. Apache snorted in annoyance. Yeah, nothing new. The green-haired fraction covered her mouth with her sleeved hand as she spoke in a chiding manner. Naruto-san, you should know better than to take naps on training days. It's not good for Harabel-sama when she makes plans ahead of time for us to train and you're not here on time. Naruto shrugged his shoulders in a carefree manner. Sorry, Sunday through Sunday. I'll try to keep that in mind next time. The tallest of the 3 fraction women laughed. He'll just find a better place to hide next time. Sunday through Sunday, don't waste your breath. Neela Rose had long, curly hair of a dark brown color. Her skin tone was much like Harabel's own, a dark tan color. She wore an attire like that of an Amazonian warrior in the human myths of old, and had mask fragments that resembled a 3-section crown on her head, as well as a necklace. Naruto just continued grinning. It's not like you 3 could do anything about it. I could outrun the 3 of you with my legs bound together and my arms tied behind my back. They knew he was teasing, but it didn't mean they'd let him get away with it, says the same Arrancar who was eating a mouthful of sand the other day. Naruto gave a withering glare to Mila. For the record, Harabel merely caught me off guard. I could have been quick enough to block that axe kick of hers if I hadn't been occupied with Apache and Sunday through Sunday attacking me at the same time. You were supposed to be covering me anyway, if I remember correctly. Mila shrugged. Harabel-sama is faster than me, what can I say? You really ought to work on your arguments, Naruto. They're learning how to deal with you a lot quicker than I did. Naruto looked over his shoulder to see Harabel walking into the chamber. Hey, Harabel. I was wondering when you'd be here. I was here about 15 minutes ago, waiting for you. You didn't have to wait for me. There's no need for me to be here in order for you girls to start sparring. Harabel blinked, all in favor of having a 4-on-1 spar against Naruto? Aye. Any opposed? I hate you all. Harabel nodded to herself. Very well, seeing as there's already a majority vote, a 4-on-1 spar against Naruto will be today's training plan then. We'll start with a light warm-up. No resurrección. There was a general murmur of disappointment, followed by a single sigh of relief. Naruto didn't need them trying to beat him to a pulp while in their powered-up state. The 5 Arrancar all took their preferred ready stance, Naruto in the center as he looked every one of them over before grinning. Ready when you 4 are. They all disappeared from view, Naruto spinning around as the wind from a blade being swiped brushed past him. Figures that Harabel would be the one to initiate the spar. The blonde flipped back as Apache phased in front of him, attempting to deck Naruto in the jaw. He wasn't surprised in the least when Mila was waiting for him with her Zanpakuto at ready. He channeled Ryatsu into his feet and used them to block her attack. You'll need to do better than that, Mila-chan. Naruto spoke while moving on his hands to deliver a kick to her midsection, sending her flying back a fair distance. Naruto quickly pushed off the ground as a bala crashed into the spot he had been moments ago. He looked to see Sunday through Sunday charging another one up while Apache made another attempt at engaging the media espada. Harabel stood at a distance as the 4 fought. In truth, she rarely did any heavy participation when all of them fought. She wanted the 3 girls to grow on their own without the Tercera holding their hands. Naruto did his part in assisting Harabel with teaching them. He was more than qualified for doing so anyway, so she let him offer pointers when he could. Apache, you're shorter. Use your leverage and height to your advantage. Naruto lectured while blocking the Horned Fraction's fist with an open palm. Unless you plan on me giving you a nasty counter, you better also pull back quickly when attacking like that. Naruto demonstrated his point by grabbing her wrist and throwing her over his shoulder and to the ground. She let out a gasp as she got the wind knocked out of her. Mila got up in time to see Sunday through Sunday on defense as Naruto attacked her. The green-haired Fraction pulled out her concealed Zanpakuto, a sai hidden in her sleeve, and blocked Naruto's foot. Seeing her chance, Mila quickly sped over to attack Naruto from behind. Oops, better move. Naruto spoke, fading from view and reappearing on a pillar. Mila halted her charge, and the three Fraction were soon standing side by side as Harabel walked in front of them, facing Naruto. Hey, get down from there and fight. Apache shouted as she rolled her shoulder a bit to get some stiffness out of it. Naruto's trying to bait you, Apache. You should recognize that by now. Harabel noted, earning a nod of agreement from Apache. Naruto in turn gave a guilty smile. Ah, Harabel, you had to go and spoil the fun. Fine. Naruto hopped down from the top of the pillar and pulled out his blade. Let's turn this up a bit. What do you say? The response was unanimous as the blonde's opponents all held their Zanpakuto at ready, Apache unstrapping the bladed bands around her wrists, Mila holding her broadsword in front of her and Sunday through Sunday holding her sai close to her. Harabel gave a small shake of her head. If you're going to be heavy with the blade fighting, I'll have to pass. I don't really feel that it would be fair on your part if I drew my blade when you have three others to worry about as well. Naruto sent her flat look. Come on, Harabel, we've known each other for what now, 70 years? Maybe more? You know I can handle four of you in a Zanpakuto fight. You think so? Harabel taunted with a twinkle in her eyes. I always admire your enthusiasm, but I think it'd be best if you four goes about this. I'll watch from the sidelines. Fine, but don't blame me when you get bored. Naruto shrugged, spinning his blade around once in his hands before gripping it by the handle tightly. The three younger Fractions split apart to attack Naruto from different angles. Naruto crouched low and raised his blade above his head as Mila's broadsword-style Zanpakuto crashed into his blade. He grunted and with a mighty heave, pushed her off of him. Before he could blink, Apache was at his side, a bladed band aimed at his face. He leaned back and delivered a snap kick to the stubborn Fraction. She flew back a bit, landing on her feet and rubbing her sore jaw. Tisk, Apache-chan, I told, stay low and use your height to your advantage. You could have decked me in the stomach twice and delivered a clean shot to my mug instead of going straight for the face. Think before you dash. Sunday through Sunday took Naruto's lecturing monologue to her advantage and tried to get Naruto in the back. The blonde Arrancar had to applaud Sunday through Sunday. She was the one with the most analytical mind of the group, though she lacked the firepower that Mila Rose and Apache had. She tended to be a fighter who would wait for the best moment when the enemy least expected an attack. She wasn't fast enough though. Naruto would have to teach her a lesson in speed in the one way he was best at, hands-on experience. Naruto zipped behind Sunday through Sunday as she faltered in her attack. He quickly tripped her feet up and let her fall to the ground. He thrust his sword so that it was a few centimeters from her face. He then cleared his throat. Sunday through Sunday, were you trying to give me time to react to your attack? Sunday through Sunday gave Naruto a disheartened frown as she looked away. No, Naruto-san. You were hardly going fast enough to give me any reason to worry. You were smart to attack from behind like that, but it would have been smarter if you had attacked when Apache was fighting me, or when Mila had me pinned for a few seconds with her sword. You're smarter than this, Sunday through Sunday, and you know it. The blonde gave her a gentle grin as he helped her up. Now, we're going to try this again, and this time, all three of you will be given a chance to come up with a plan. Sound fair? In truth, Arrancar didn't really fight in teams. Grimmjow certainly didn't. However, these three were an exception. They balanced each other out, and if they played their cards right, they could give anyone, even a lower captain of the Siriitii, a run for their money. Apache was a tenacious and forward approach fighter, and she was good at dishing out and receiving a beating when she needed to. Kind of like how he was when he was younger. Mila Rose was the most powerful in overall strength, and her energy-based attacks were marginally stronger than the other two. She didn't have the speed of the others though, but it took a good observer to notice this. Sunday through Sunday obviously was the one who would try and find the enemy's weakness, and she was the best at conserving her powers. She wasn't as fast as Apache, but she certainly made up for it with her grace and footwork. Naruto is right. You three could definitely do much better if you thought of how to approach him beforehand. Harabel added, seeing Naruto's aim with his lecture. Ah, but Harabel-sama, we won't have the time to think over a strategy in a real battle. Mila spoke as she lowered her sword. What's the point? Figuring out a strategy now will help the three of you later on. If you can figure out how each of you would best approach a certain enemy, be it a large one, or a one with amazing speed. By doing this planning in a spar, you'll know what to do in a real fight. The Tercera replied as she looked to Naruto. Naruto, go on the defensive. Only counter if you have no other option. The blonde gave a nod, okay. He turned to the three women and winked, let's try this again. Take a few minutes and figure out a strategy here. You know enough about my fighting style and typical reactions to various scenarios, so it shouldn't be too hard for you three, right? The three looked to each other and formed a circle. They spoke in hushed voices while giving Naruto glances every now and then. He waited patiently for them to finish their talk, and was a bit surprised to see them ready in about 5 minutes' time. You think it'll work? Apache spoke in a hushed voice. I still say you flash him, Mila. He'll be stunned for a whole minute and we could take him out for the count right then and dash. Whack! That's not going to happen. Mila growled, retracting a fist from Apache's head. Besides, we all know you're the biggest pervert here, Apache. I am not. Sunday through Sunday sighed, Mila, Apache. The plan? Both quieted down and turned forward again to face their opponent. They got into ready stances again, and ran to Naruto, their plan fresh in their mind. About a half hour later found Sunday through Sunday, Apache, and Mila Rose lying on the floor of the chambers, breathing heavily as Naruto sat down in a relaxed position. He was proud of them, to say the least. They had managed to actually nick him a few times with their weapons, and Apache grazed him with a low-powered bala more than once. I think that's enough for today. Harabel stated as she walked over from her spot against the wall. You all did well today. I think Naruto actually is nursing a bruise over there from Mila. Naruto rubbed his forearm a bit, chuckling as he held up his arm. I guess so, huh? Nice work, Mila. The three women got up from the ground, all sporting bruises and marks of their own, but none of them were disappointed in the outcome. Their strategy had worked. Apache had been the first to strike Naruto, actually taking his advice this time and going for a shot to his ribs. He blocked that with one of his arms, only for Mila and Sunday through Sunday to attack from opposite sides at the same time. He decided to deal with the worst of the two attacks, and raised his blade to block Mila's sword. Naruto tried to move to the side to avoid getting stabbed by Sun-sun's Sai, but still got scratched on the shoulder. They switched up their strategy a few times in the middle of the battle, usually having Mila or Apache take Naruto directly long enough for Sunday through Sunday and someone else to attack him. Other times they would attack in a synchronized fashion with a low-powered Zero trio, or they would even attack all at once. Well, I've seen better, but I've seen a hell of a lot worse too, so I give you my approval. You three are definitely catching on quickly to the teamwork idea. Naruto stated, now, I have business to attend to. I'll catch you all later. Naruto gave a wave before flickering away. Harabel-sama? Yes, Sunday through Sunday? Why does Naruto-san always say that when he leaves? Does he really have business to take care of? Harabel sighed, I wouldn't know, Sunday through Sunday. He's been tight-lipped about his private life for a while now, which isn't like him. He's usually talking about something or another whenever he has the chance. The four were quiet for a whole 2 minutes as they dusted themselves off. Apache decided to speak. Well, I've seen him going out to Hueco Mundo a lot more often. Hueco Mundo? Harabel repeated. I think I know why, then. Naruto stood on a dune high above the others in the eternal night of the desert. He took in a few deep breaths, taking in the aura of the faint spirit particles that surrounded him. Hardly enough to consider a viable source of energy for a spiritual being like himself, but he didn't really worry about food or energy these days. Stark had disciplined him ages ago in surviving off of next to nothing. He could go a whole decade if he really wanted to without eating more than a single hollow, as long as he did nothing but sleep after that. That wasn't why he was here though. He was here because Hueco Mundo's vast landscape was the only place he could go to train his true powers. To release your resurrection is to call forth the wild, instinctual part of you that you had abandoned when you became an Arrancar, Naruto. Remember this well, for this power is what makes us different from the animals beyond the walls of Las Noches. Yes, Nel-chan. Naruto drew his blade while raising it into the air. He took in a few more deep breaths before closing his eyes. His Ryatsu suddenly crashed down on the surrounding area like a tsunami on a small beach. He gritted his teeth, eyes snapping open while turning a crimson color. He felt the familiar sensation of his unique aura surround him and let off a red light. Gripping his sword tightly, he spoke the words that unlocked his true powers, Ravage. The word echoed over the hills of Hueco Mundo as he paused, Rey de Zoros. A shockwave was emitted from the blonde, sand flying in every direction. A light shot into the skies above as Naruto let out a roar that would likely be sending any hollows in the area running with their tails between their legs. The sword in his hands disappeared into the red aura, and Naruto felt his body change. His mask fragment warped and changed, transforming into a skull that he would have associated with as his mask when he was but in a juches. Nails grew out, and his arms were covered in a red fur of sorts. Spike-like armor appeared on either of Naruto's shoulders while platelets covered his forearms and kneecaps. His blonde hair grew a bit, giving him a feral appearance. Fangs grew out from his upper jaw, and he felt a number of tails grow out from the end of his spine. While the tails grew, his platelets formed bladed projections from the forearms. His elbows in turn grew spiked at the end, while the skull on his head formed a lower jaw which became integrated with the blonde's own. The tails were now fully developed, 6 of them in all. The interesting trait was they too had spiked armor of sorts. The armor appeared heavy to anyone aside from Naruto, but it was actually rather light. Very hard, yes. Heavy? No. Naruto flexed his claws for a few moments, nodding. He hadn't released his Zanpakuto in almost 5 years now. He cracked his neck a bit before shuffling his clawed feet. He remained motionless, crouching low and ready to attack. Then he vanished, only to appear maybe a second later by a large rock and decimating it with a swipe of a claw. He looked to the distance to see the sand he had kicked up from moving still falling. He phased away a second time, this time launching a bala from his hands and reappearing in front of it. He took a sideswipe at the ball of energy with his arms, remaining motionless as the attack continued onward. Just as it was about to hit a dune, it split in two and the two waves crashed into 2 separate dunes, exploding and sending more dust into the air. Looks like they've remained as sharp as ever. Naruto commented before fading from view, reappearing above the giant crater from his split attack. His 6 tails flexed a bit before curling while facing forward with his clawed hands. This was something he had been working on for a few decades now. An attack he had discovered while experimenting with this form of his. He held a small ball of bright orange energy in his upturned palms, then pulled his hands back while the ball began to spin. A maelstrom picked up around the area as the ball began to grow. A small cyclone formed directly below him as the winds reached dangerous speeds, howling as their creator began to finish forming the dense ball of energy. Naruto smirked to himself as he looked at the ball, and then to the winds below, thrashing mercilessly as they yearned for destruction. His tails curled back as the ball began to vibrate, its raw power begging for release. Naruto held the ball up with his 2 hands for a brief moment before launching it down to the cyclone. One word escaped the media espada's lips as the ball neared the sands below, Tormenta. Grimmjow watched as a large, spinning cloud of energy formed in the far-off horizon. He grinned a bit as he watched Naruto's light show. A moment later, the sound of a sonic boom was heard, and it met Grimmjow. He laughed as the winds whipped at his face, tossing his hair around a bit. Looks like he's doing some real training for once, Grimmjow commented as the winds died down, but never really ceased. I was worried that he was getting lax on me again. An explosion went off. Then another. Then another still. The sexta watched in mild amusement as Naruto made a war zone out of the far-off sands. He had seen Naruto's released state. He knew what he was capable of. He'd become used to the explosions whenever Naruto decided to awaken Rey de Zoros. The explosion stopped after a good minute or so, and Grimmjow decided he'd go kill sometime himself. Aizen said that they'd be starting up those plans of his in another month, so he may as well get any kinks out of his system. Maybe there would actually be an enemy worth fighting among those Shinigami fools. Naruto took in a deep breath, beads of sweat forming on his forehead as he cancelled the bala forming in his hands. That tormenta of his took enough spiritual energy out of him as is, but going and adding in an air raid of bala strikes just drained more from him. Looking down at the flat he had created, still smoking and slightly glassed over, he gathered a bit more Ryatsu before spinning around and slashing at the air with his 6 tails. They created a razor wind which flew through the air, smashing into the blackened sands, and cracking the glass surface before sending shards into the air. Naruto gave a grin as he landed on the ground while it rained sand and rubble. This was good for now. He wasn't sure what to expect in the near future, but something told him that he'd need to be on top of his game if this tingling feeling in the back of his mind was anything to take note of. He regressed to his natural state, letting out a sigh as the power subsided to a dull roar within him. No doubt he got the attention of more than a few in Las Noches. Harabel will be bothering me for an answer when I get back. I can feel it. Naruto sighed. With a quick sonido, he dashed across the dunes of Hueco Mundo, intent on getting back as soon as possible. As soon as he was back in the corridors of Las Noches, he felt a presence. Lo and behold, there was Harabel, looking at him with her usual calm and patient expression. Your resurrection is as strong as ever. Yeah. I felt like letting loose a bit. Haven't really gotten to go all out for a long time, and hardly anyone but Grimmjow will go to that level and spar with me. Harabel decided to cut to the chase. Naruto, what have you been up to these past couple of months? Apache's been saying that you've been going out to Hueco Mundo more often these days. Ah, this Naruto was prepared for. Aizen says that we need to prepare. I'm preparing myself, that's all. Harabel gave Naruto a critical look before sighing. I'll accept that for now. I would think otherwise, seeing as you nap a lot more often than you used to. It's not like you. She turned to head down to her chambers. Naruto felt a wave of relief wash over him as she continued down the hall. That wave of relief was short-lived though. Naruto, I know you've been suspicious of Aizen-sama's activities lately, and that you're not all that thrilled about his plans. The whisker-marked blonde looked at the back of his superior, tensing a little as she stopped her trek down the hall. She turned her head slightly, waiting for an answer. He gave a laugh. What are you talking about, Harabel? I'm not Dash. Face it, Naruto, you're too good at being honest to lie. She cut him off, her eyes still not meeting his. I just hope that whatever you're planning won't be endangering everyone. Crap. Well, she was on to him now. He spoke, so you're saying that you'll stop me if I do something that Aizen wouldn't approve of? He had been expecting her to reply with a yes. He was surprised when she was silent for what seemed like an eternity. She then turned forward and continued down the hall. Naruto blinked. That was unexpected. What did it mean? Naruto groaned as he rubbed his temples. Damn it, he'd need to find Grimmjow. He usually was good at helping Naruto let out some stress. That and Naruto felt like he could use a good beating to help him forget about the crap going on right now. He'd have to be on his toes now. Harabel was suspicious of him, or maybe she wasn't, and simply knew he was planning something. Would he be able to hold his own against her or any of the other higher-ranked Espada? He wasn't too sure. The logical part of him said that he would be in and over his head in a situation such as that. The warrior within him said that it made no difference. Naruto had decided years ago that Aizen was a man that was biting off more than he should. Although, the truth was that he could probably achieve what he wanted if he really wanted. The man was disturbingly clever, and the plan he currently had running its course in Siriidii was clearly that of a genius. I've got my own agenda though too. Naruto spoke to himself as he headed down the halls to Grimmjow's room. Perhaps he could talk to the Sexta about his opinion on the matter. Sure, Grimmjow was likely to not care all that much. If Naruto made the point of saying that Aizen was a threat to everyone, and not just Soul Society, perhaps he'd be able to convince the blue-haired Espada otherwise. That, and Grimmjow always enjoyed a good fight. When Ichigo had started this whole substitute Soul Reaper business, he never imagined he'd be in this predicament that he was in now. Rukia was gone, supposedly back in Soul Society. Sakura had disappeared for a few days, only to be at the Urahara shop, arguing with the eccentric shopkeeper about the dangers of letting Chad, Uryu, and Oroheim come with. A talking cat had taken on training Chad and Oroheim in improving their new powers, while Uryu had gone off somewhere to train his own Quincy powers. Ichigo had pretty much died, lost his Soul Reaper powers, and then regained them, thanks in part to Urahara. His sword was different now. His powers were different too. Damn it, Kisuke. They're just kids. How can you expect them to survive a single day in Siriitii, let alone break through the barrier surrounding it? It's bad enough that Rukia is going to be executed for something like this. Kisuke looked to the 4th squad seated officer, Sakura Haruno, and sighed, Sakura, you really ought to put more faith in them. They're tough, and you know how strong Ichigo is right now. That doesn't change the fact that we're talking about going face to face with people like Kenpachi, Soifan, Byakuya, and, heaven forbid, Yamamoto Soteishu. They won't last against such power. That's why you're going to help them, Sakura, spoke the black cat named Yoruchi. The rosette gave the cat a knowing look, to which the feline replied calmly, yes, I will be accompanying you 6 as well. Retsu would never forgive me if I let you do this alone. The medic Shinigami seemed a bit calmer as she heard this, alright, but you know that we still have a very slim chance of getting through this successfully. Urahara flipped his fan open, my, Sakura, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you were doubting your abilities. I haven't been a Shinigami nearly as long as you, Kisuke. I'm older than Rukia, but Shikamaru and I didn't enter the academy until after I met her and Rinji. There's also the fact that I'm a healer before a fighter. Hey, are we going to do this or what? The 2 Shinigami and cat looked to the orange-haired teen. Sakura gave a frown before nodding, turning to Kisuke, I still feel like you're not telling me something. Me? Kisuke laughed lightheartedly, Sakura, you shouldn't be so suspicious. Besides, I'm on your side, remember? 10 minutes later found Sakura and Yoruchi standing in front of the 4 teenagers. Sakura felt a bit of her earlier discomfort disappear as she stared at the faces of the 4, seeing looks of determination. Alright, are you all ready? Once we enter here, there's no turning back. They all gave nods, and Sakura turned to Yoruchi, and the black cat gave a small nod as well. Sakura didn't know what to expect, but she knew one thing was for certain, Shikamaru would be griping about this and how troublesome it was as soon as he found out. Shikamaru Nara. Brains of the 10th Division. Tactician expert. Shogi champion of the lower 60 Rukongai districts for 20 straight years before entering the academy. The reluctant 5th seated officer of Division 10. The Nara scratched his head as he looked over a report he had received from some witnesses at the West Gate where Ryoka supposedly had been spotted. One thing bothered him though according to the report. A Shinigami had been among them. A pink-haired Shinigami, and a woman at that. He was pretty sure Yuichiro wasn't among the possible suspects, considering she had been seen no more than 2 hours ago running down a street as Ikaku Madarame chased after her while sporting a large bruise on his face. Working hard, Shikakuan? Shikamaru looked up from his papers and gave the newcomer a wave. Hello, Fukuteichu. Ranjiko gave a confused look to Shikamaru. I thought you were on break. I am. Why are you here, then? This report from the other day about the Ryoka. It's bothering me. Ranjiko walked around to lean against Shikamaru, looking at the document. She noted it was written out in the neat handwriting of Jin himself. Jin said he encountered the Ryoka. There was a meeting that same day between the captains. From what I understand, Jin said he was trying to keep the Ryoka from entering Siriitii. Yeah, but that's not what is bugging me. Take a look at this. Shikamaru pointed to a particular line from the report. Ranjika read the line over twice before shaking her head. That can't be, I thought she went missing about a month ago. No one found her when Rukia Kuchiki was taken in by Rinji and Byakuya Taishu. Sakura is the only possible one I can think of. According to a 4th Division eyewitness, it was her. I better inform Momo about this. I already sent her a letter. Hitsugaya Taishu also spoke to her last night, so she is well aware. She seemed upset, but she's okay for the most part. Shikamaru took the report from Ranjiku and looked it over once more before sighing. Why is this happening? It's so damn troublesome. Shikakuan, you want me to give you a massage? Shikamaru almost took the offer. Almost. She gave him one before, and he wouldn't be dumb and deny that she knew what she was doing. Not now though. He had to mull over this recent bit of information that was giving him a headache. "I'll get back to you on that, Fukutechu," Shikamaru replied. Ranjiko seemed to understand what he was feeling, and put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sure Sakura has a good reason, Shikakuan. Taicho and I are doing everything we can to figure out what is going dash." The lieutenant's words were cut off as the sound of an explosion went off outside. The Siriidii alarms went off a second later, and the sound of screams outside got the attention of the two. Shikamaru shot up from his seat immediately. What the hell was that? The two dashed outside to see a ball of light in the sky, heading straight for Siriidii. Shikamaru watched as it crashed into the barrier above Siriidii, and pressed against it. "They're breaking through the barrier," a guard shouted, followed by a few more surprised gasps and exclamations as the ball indeed smashed through. It exploded before sending off 4 distinct beams of light that went off in different directions. Shikamaru swore he sensed a familiar Ryatsu from the one that headed farthest south. The Nara grumbled as he looked to see 3 other plumes of smoke in different parts of Siriidii. He looked south once more before heading off towards the direction he had an inkling would reveal what was behind all this commotion lately. "Shika, wait!" Ranjiko called, but the younger Shinigami was already gone. She would go after him, but her duties as the lieutenant came first. She bit back a curse, and headed towards the 10th Division headquarters to meet with Hitsugaya. "My, things seem to be getting rather interesting around here, eh?" Aizen turned to Jin, giving the silver-haired captain a small smile. "Indeed they are. That Haruno girl is apparently helping those Ryoka in their cause." "Really? Huh, never thought of her as the rebellious type." The man gave a chuckle as his grin grew. "What's her reason?" "She's trying to free Rukia, or so Nara-san of the 10th Division says. He was knocked out by her after she released her shuriken on him." Aizen spoke while looking outside his window, calmly watching the moon glow. "She shouldn't be underestimated. She's one of Anohana's stronger officers. She taught the girl personally in more than a few of the Shinigami arts." "Interesting. Momo and her are friends, aren't they?" "That they are, best of friends, in fact. Momo has been rather torn about what she should do: hunt her down personally and try to talk some sense into her, or allow the others to find her." The captain of the 3rd Division raised an eyebrow. "What did you tell her?" "I said she should do what any good friend should do." Jin laughed. "Momo's hunting the girl down right now, huh?" Aizen's smile remained on his face. "Yes. The poor girl is too easy to manipulate. In the meantime, I can begin with our plans." "You know what to do, right, Jin?" Jin just smiled in a fox-like fashion. Naruto drummed his fingers on the tabletop as he waited for Stark to enter the chambers. Looking down the table, he watched as Yami rested his chin on the palm of his left hand while his eyelids drooped every now and then. Grimjo alternated between glaring at Ulquiorra while the 4th Espada ignored him and grumbling about waiting. The others were for the most part quiet. Naruto decided to strike up a conversation, even if he knew it would annoy everyone more than anything. "So, anyone else find human artwork weird?" A pin could have been dropped and been heard as it became quiet. Naruto simply grinned innocently as the 9 Espada at the table gave him looks between amusement and annoyance. "What the hell, Uzumaki? Who cares about art?" Naruto shrugged his shoulders as Yami decided to kill time by arguing. "I just was curious, that's all. I mean, I can understand that someone with your mental capabilities wouldn't be able to hold such a conversation, but I figured I'd try and humor myself." Yami stood up, Aranero being the only one between the behemoth and the blonde Medio Espada. "What did you say?" "I said I can understand that someone with dash." "Naruto, enough." The Uzumaki snorted in laughter as Harabel cut the blonde off. He sighed with a weak chuckle. "Yes, Harabel-sama." Yami looked to the younger blonde for a moment before turning to the Tercera. She gave Yami a steely gaze. He decided he may as well sit down. No use getting in a fight only for the others to end it. The main chamber doors opened as Stark walked in. He gave them all a bored look before continuing to the table. He sat in his chair, looking around before speaking. "Aizen-sama has sent us a message. His plans had to be changed a bit, but he's close to obtaining the Hogyoku." "Had to change his plans?" asked Ulquiorra, receiving a nod from the Primera. "What's the reason?" Stark shrugged, not too sure. He sent a hollow back with a report saying that some intruders entered Siriidii to retrieve the one holding the Hogyoku within her. One of them is a Shinigami, another is a Quincy, and another is a human with Soul Reaper powers. There are 3 other humans involved, they have their own unique abilities. One is a local of Rukandai, a noble family member at that. It would appear that they were underestimated by the captains of Soul Society, and have caused a noticeable amount of trouble. I tell you, humans are not a group to take lightly. Give them enough Ryatsu exposure and they'll become a problem real quick. Naruto spoke. Anyway, Stark continued, when he obtains the Hogyoku, Aizen-sama will begin forming more Arrancar for the army. Barragan and myself will be receiving fraction, as well as sale. Anyone else interested can talk to Aizen-sama when he has returned with his 2 accomplices. Stark looked around the room again before nodding, that's all he had to say. Question. Yes, Naruto? Stark replied, a knowing look on his face. Just how exactly does he plan on us 11 to take on all of Soul Society? I mean, yeah, we're probably stronger than 95% or so of the Shinigami and Siriidii, but there's still the captains and vice-captains to worry about. Not to mention that humans are figuring out how to jump worlds here, the blonde asked with an unusual amount of seriousness in his voice. I'm not too sure, Naruto. You know though as well as I do that, we're at the top of the ranks in Las Noches for a reason. It will be another month or so before we even begin our movement to obtain the Ukin. Naruto seemed to accept the answer in stride, and yawned, well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm going to go train for a while. The blonde got up from his spot, and looked to Harabel, I'll be back in a few hours. Later. Naruto headed out the door at a leisurely pace, the other Espada soon taking their leave as well. Soon enough, it was just Stark and Harabel as they stood up, heading out the open door. He's been acting weird lately. You've noticed too. Harabel stated, he's been having difficulty with the sudden involvement with Soul Society. He's strong though, I've been keeping my eye on him. He'll be ready when the time comes. Stark felt that Harabel was leaving out something, but didn't inquire further. The woman had enough on her plate as it was with her 3 other fraction and preparing them for the war ahead. No doubt it'd be one hell of a battle for the lower Arrancar. He wasn't really worried about his own well-being. No, he was confident in his abilities. It was people like Naruto that he was worried about. The blonde was the kind of guy that would take a killing blow for you without a moment's hesitation. He's going to worry me into an early death, that kid. Harabel gave a nod, yes. I was always under the impression that hollows of any form don't express positives. I actually find myself worrying about him and his safety, though, not worrying about him as a problem. Stark laughed quietly, I tell you, he's a unique case. Do I detect pride in your voice? Sure. Not sure if it's pride in him as a person, or in his ability to cause a ruckus with such little effort on his part, the Primera replied. Sakura Haruno, who had been doing her best to heal the severely injured Ichigo, looked to see the once friendly and placating Captain Sasuke Aizen walk past a severely injured Renji Abarai, and locked eyes with her. She had received word of Aizen's betrayal not too long ago from Aizen herself through a Kido spell to communicate to Soul Society. Aizen gave her a smile that sent chills down her spine. Sakura. I see you're doing well. I must thank you, your involvement in trying to retrieve Rukia kept many preoccupied. Especially Shikamaru-kun. I imagine he suspected something from me earlier on, but was too worried about your own sake to care that much. Sakura bit back a string of curses, knowing full well that Shikamaru was in a similar predicament as Renji, Ichigo, and Byakuya. He was last seen accompanying Hitsugaya to the Central 46's chambers. It was reported that he along with the 10th Division Captain and Momo were severely injured. Not to mention the members of the Central 46 themselves had all been murdered by Aizen as well. I could have helped them sooner. Sakura grit her teeth, drawing her Zanpakuto as the man approached her, glasses reflecting the light in them, hiding the expression in his eyes. Sakura, there's no need to go and direct your killer intent at me. I have no interest in harming you. In fact, I'd like to thank you, your absence left a large gap in our healing division. Surely Momo-chan can agree to that. Why you bastard? Sakura cried out, her eyes flashing with anger, lament, Ikoku-kane. Sakura's Zanpakuto, a simple katana with a jet-black colored handle and 4 curled points projecting from a circle for a guard, glowed. A light green aura erupted from her before her katana transformed, growing larger and gaining weight. Aizen's smile grew a bit as he watched Sakura's Shurikai reveal itself. The sword had transformed into two black gauntlets that covered her from knuckles to just before her elbows, decorated with a little golden color, giving it an appealing look. The portion of her gauntlets on her hands had a dark armor coating them. The finishing touch was a black chain connecting the two gauntlets together by the ends where they covered her forearms while hanging loosely over her shoulders. Ah, yes, Ikokuken, the Zanpakuto with the ability to amplify one's physical strength by as much as 100-fold. Am I right, Sakura? You covered some of Ikokuken's power. However, Sakura lifted one of her fists and cocked it back as it glowed green. I have never revealed my full power to anyone outside of the 4th division. Tenrai Kanatsuki. Sakura's withdrawn fist punched forward in the air, a large ball of iridescent, green Ryatsu flying out from the end. Aizen raised an eyebrow before his smile turned into a small grin. The blast exploded as it hit the bespectacled captain, roaring as a small dome of energy formed before erupting in a flash of light. Sakura stood upright for a moment as the smoke cleared, heaving in air as she felt her energy slipping. Damn it, she shouldn't have released her Shuriken again so quickly. The faint outline of her enemy appeared before the smoke cleared. He smiled lightly while appearing unscathed by the attack Sakura had launched. Well, I must say, that was quite an impressive attack for a 4th seat officer. Though, from what Momo has told me, you've remained in your current seat on your own accord. Sakura felt pain rip through her body as crimson flew in a few directions. She looked to see her arms and legs littered with various cuts. She fell to her stomach, managing to catch herself as she coughed a bit of blood up. She strained to see the 5th division captain standing behind her, apparently sheathing his Zanpakuto. How did he get past her defenses so easily? She didn't even see him disappear with Shuunpa. It's a pity, all that effort you and your friends put into saving Rukia and stopping me when I have so easily disposed of the 3 of you, continued Aizen. He stopped moving as the presence of other Shinigami appeared. Aizen, what is the meaning of this? Yamamoto growled as he gripped his staff, blaring daggers at the supposedly dead Shinigami captain. Ah, so Teishu. It's good to see you. As for your question, smiled Aizen, holding the Hogyoku he had obtained a short while ago from Rukia, I've got greater plans that involve a vision beyond Tsuruitai. The Hogyoku will help me attain this vision of mine. The few that had managed to return to Sokayaku Hill were rewarded with the scene of Aizen, Jin, and Kaname Tozen standing before the beaten bodies of Ichigo, Rinjiaburai, and Sakura. Rukia, still in her powerless state, had watched helplessly as Aizen, a man who had supposedly been a benign and caring individual, nearly killed her dearest friends. It seemed almost like a nightmare. It could be real. There was also the fact that his dead body had supposedly been impaled to a building not too long ago. Aizen went on to explain that his Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu, had the ability of complete hypnosis. He had fooled the entire captain and vice-captain population into thinking his Zanpakuto had different abilities ages ago during a Zanpakuto release ceremony. He had trapped them all in an illusion of seeing something different, and thus never revealed its true powers. Well, he had, but not with them knowing so. More and more Shinigami captains and vice-captains appeared, and Aizen found himself being restrained by Soifan, captain of the 2nd Division, and Yoruchi Shihoun, former captain of the 2nd Division and the supposed feline accomplice of Ichigo's group. It's over, Aizen. Aizen looked to see not only himself, but also Kaname and Jin also being restrained by Hisagi Shuhei and Ranjikur respectively. Over? I beg to differ, Yoruchi-san. Yoruchi's eyes quirked a bit as she stared at the traitor. A tingling feeling in the back of her mind started sending a mental warning through her being. Soifan, get away from him, now. Soifan cocked her head to the side in confusion, but her silent question was answered a moment sooner as a ray of light shot out of the sky. The two women, along with Ranjiku and Hisagi, moved away from their captives. Similar beams of light shot down and enveloped Tozen and Jin as well. Negation, spoke Yukitake, the captain of the 13th Division. He along with the others looked up to see a horde of Minos Grande opening up the rift in the sky. That means. He shook his head. Aizen, have you truly sunk so low? You're too proud, Yukitake. I plan on achieving greatness, and rising above this realm you call Soul Society. I alone will stand at the top. Aizen pulled off his glasses while shattering them, and smoothed back his hair, giving a surprisingly new look to himself with such a simple gesture. Goodbye, Shinigami. Aizen cast his grin over to Ichigo as he neared the rift. Goodbye, human Ryoka boy. It was truly interesting experience in meeting you. With that, the rift closed. A faint wind blew through the area, and the horrible feeling of this event being just the beginning settled in the pit of everyone's stomachs. Naruto was the first to greet Aizen, Jin, and Kaname as they walked into the main chamber of Las Noches. He gave a bow to the three men, deciding to take on a more mellow role as an Arrancar for now. It's good to see you again, Aizen-sama. The leader of the Espada stopped before Naruto. Ah, yes. Naruto, these are the two gentlemen who helped me obtain the Hogyoku. Naruto was quickly introduced to Kaname Tozen and Jin Ikamaru, giving both men a grin as he nodded to the two. This is Naruto Uzumaki, the Media Espada of Las Noches. Media Espada? Jin repeated, giving Naruto a curious look with his smile not faltering in the slightest. I don't believe you ever told me about such a position of power, Aizen. Aizen-sama doesn't like to advertise his secret weapons that much, Jin-san. Naruto replied with a somewhat boastful tone, you could call me the ace up his sleeve, the extra round of ammo, the cavalry of the Espada, the dash. He's quite the talker, isn't he? Jin asked quietly while Aizen merely nodded, used to this behavior from the blonde. Naruto, would you care to give these two a brief tour of Las Noches? Well, this was unexpected. He was just expecting to being the one greeting the three. Nothing more, sure. 5 minutes later found Naruto walking down the halls of Las Noches, pointing out the various landmarks and rooms. That room belongs to Ulquiorra. He's okay, I guess. He could stand to smile a bit more often, but it's not my business. He's the fourth Espada. Let's see, Down this hall and 2 rights will bring you to the training room that Harabel-sama and her fraction train in. Jin was finding this young-looking Arrancar to be a welcome start to Las Noches. He had been expecting lots of dreary, bleak skies in Arrancar with the social skills that made Kaname look like a chatterbox. Didn't you say that you're the fraction of the Tercera as well? Naruto turned around, giving Jin a smirk. As a matter of fact, yes. I'm proud of it too. She's one of the best sword dash. Naruto, you really need to learn to keep your voice down when you talk. These halls are good at carrying sound. Sorry, Stark. Naruto stood to the side and looked to Jin and Kaname again. This is the Primera, Stark. He's was my superior before Harabel took me as her fraction. Stark gave a wave to the 2 former captains. I was told that 2 newcomers arrived. Pleased to meet you. He yawned a bit before glancing to Naruto. Aizen in his chambers? Yeah, he told me to let you know that you can head over there whenever you're ready. Stark gave a quick nod before heading down the opposite direction the trio was going. He seems pretty laid back for the Primera. Kaname noted as they continued down the hall, is he really that strong? I have yet to last more than 5 minutes in a serious training session with him. Naruto replied, although, I think that's partly to do with the fact that I haven't really sparred with him in over 4 decades. I've gotten better since then. They continued for another half hour before Naruto led them back to the main chamber of Las Noches. Naruto decided that the 2 men weren't half bad, though Kaname seemed to be a man of few words. Jin was okay, seeing as he talked to Naruto with a genuine interest in what he had to say. This was a problem though. Naruto had not been expecting Aizen's 2 accomplices to be captain-level Shinigami. He should have known better though. Aizen wasn't foolish enough to have weak underlings help him with such a job like obtaining the Hogyoku. The teenage-looking Arrancar whistled as he strolled down the halls. He needed to go find Apache. She had been asking Naruto to help her with her Zanpaku to release lately. As her superior, he was responsible for her growth. Harabel would have been willing to help her as well, but Naruto had actually asked the young fraction first. Surprisingly, Apache had accepted without questions asked. He didn't have to look long for her, seeing as she was leaning against a pillar with Mila Rose and Sunday through Sunday by her side. She looked up and gave Naruto a rare grin. You're on time for once. I was feeling generous. The 4 shared a chuckle before Naruto's face became a bit more serious. I take it you 2 want to join the Resurrection training today? Harabel-sama is meditating, and we didn't want to disturb her. We've got nothing else going on. Mila replied, accompanied by a nod from Sunday through Sunday. This may actually prove to be better for us then. Apache, I want you to proceed with the drills in holding your Ryatsu at its highest maximum without releasing your blade, just like we did the other day. Naruto instructed as the 4 headed out to the White Sands. Mila, Sunday through Sunday, I'll get you started in the same drill Apache's doing. It'll help you with your Ryatsu growth and make it easier to maintain high amounts of power without relying on your Zanpakuto's release to bail you out. Why would we want to do that? I thought it's important to have a grasp over your resurrection. It is, Mila. However, suppose your enemy manages to disarm you before you can call out your released form. Then what? Your enemy is strong, yet you can't use your resurrection. You'll have to fight them long enough to create a distraction and retrieve your blade. Managing to sustain a high Ryatsu level is essential to being a strong Arrancar. The two gave a nod while Apache walked off some distance to begin her training while Naruto prepped the other two, explaining the basics of the drill. After he got them started, he walked off to lean against a nearby pillar, watching the three from a distance. Sure enough, Apache was having the easiest time with reaching her maximum power. Sunday through Sunday seemed to be doing fine as well, and Mila was just a little slow in raising her Ryatsu. It wasn't a surprise though, Naruto always believed Mila Rose was the strongest of the three. Apache was improving quickly though, and even Sunday through Sunday seemed to have taken that last training session to heart. Her Ryatsu seemed to carry a greater weight to it. It wasn't much, but it was more. Hey, don't tell me you're falling asleep. Apache shouted, beads of sweat dripping down her face and neck from sustaining her maximum for almost 20 minutes. Naruto's eyes fluttered open, and he realized he had been dozing off. Dang, he was doing that more often. Harabel was right, Stark was starting to rub off on him. Maybe it's a side effect of being old. Naruto commented to himself, sorry, Apache-chan. Go ahead and release your Zanpakuto if you want. Mila, Sunday through Sunday, 5 more minutes for you too, and then you do the same. Apache gave a nod. A few moments later her released form standing before the blonde, now adorning antlers and hooves where her feet had been. Naruto grinned at her, receiving an angry look from Naruto. Stop laughing. It's not cute. I'm the fraction of Harabel-sama. My resurrection is powerful. Naruto raised a hand as he restrained a snort of laughter. I am sorry, Apache-chan. I agree though that you're powerful, but I think if you looked in a mirror you'd see what I mean when I tell you it's cute. Apache stomped one of her hoofed feet in the sand, her ire getting the better of her. Shut up, baka. It's not cute. Naruto sighed while wiping away a few tears from his restrained chuckles. Alright, hehe, it's very dignified and speaks of power and prestige. Naruto looked to see Mila and Sunday through Sunday restraining laughter as well. Naruto's just teasing you, Apache, jeesh. Mila spoke, besides, there's nothing wrong with being cute and strong at the same time. 5 minutes passed with Sunday through Sunday and Mila Rose also releasing their Zanpakuto. Naruto smiled at the two, Sunday through Sunday having a snake tail replacing her legs and her 3 hair clip-like fragments now growing to the back of her head like a crest of sorts. Mila Rose's release seemed to make her look more feral, just like the name of her Zanpakuto. She gained a more armored attire, longer hair, like a mane of sorts with a streak of brighter colors to her usual brown running down the middle, and carried a larger sword than before. Sierva, Anaconda, and Leona. Naruto nodded to each one of the girls before continuing. Harabel told me you 3 learned a new ability recently. Something involving the combination of your powers. I'd like to see that. The 3 seemed hesitant, looking at each other with uneasiness, then to Naruto again. Sunday through Sunday spoke, with all respect, Naruto-san, it would probably be better that we don't. We prefer not using that power unless there's no other choice. It's deadly, and we're not even sure if we have any real control over it. Ha ha ha, come on. I'm stronger than you 3 give me credit for. Whatever it is, I'll be ready for it. Apache looked to the 2 beside her. Do you really think he could handle Alon? Well, he is Naruto. Mila noted, he probably could. I just don't like the idea of ripping off our left arm for a spar. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Ripping off your arms? What? Why yeah. Apache added, rubbing said arm, we have to rip off our left arms and combine them together to create a being called Alon. It's not the prettiest of techniques, but it's powerful. Alon's a combination of our abilities put together. I see. Naruto spoke, well, I imagine ripping off your arms would be a bit much. I'll tell you what. For now, all 3 of you will face me at once. If what you say is true, I'd rather not have you 3 ripping arms off. I don't have that great of healing techniques in my arsenal, and Aizen-sama would probably get on my case for allowing you three to go and do that to yourselves." The three girls quietly let out a mental sigh of relief. They weren't really favoring the idea of ripping off their arms and releasing that thing again. Not to mention it took a good week and a half for Aizen to get them an errand car that could attach their arms back on. They suspected he'd make another couple of healing errand car now that he had the Hogyoku. "Sounds good to me." Mila replied with a fanged grin, "Just don't blame us when you end up banged and bruised up." Naruto snorted, "Okay, now you're going to ask for it." He placed one hand on his blade's handle that remained in its holster strapped across his back. "Now, show me just how powerful you three really are. Don't pull your punches. Don't hesitate. Come at me only if you intend to rip me to shreds, or I'll be sure that this will be your last training session for a good month if I need to." They recognized Naruto's serious business voice. He used that voice only in a few situations: he was fighting an enemy, someone he cared for was hurt, or when he was training seriously. The three took 3 points while surrounding Naruto. He eyed each one of them while keeping his hand over his blade's handle. Then they attacked. Apache stood, legs wobbling a bit as she watched in dismay while Naruto dusted himself off, a bit scorched from her last zero, but otherwise fine. Her slightly panicked look became less strained though as Naruto gave her a smile. "Good job, Apache. You managed to endure the longest, though I would suppose that is due to Mila taking the brunt of the attacks." Speaking of which, Naruto looked over to an exhausted Mila Rose and Sunday through Sunday. "How are you two holding up over there?" Mila waved weakly as Sunday through Sunday rested her head on her shoulders. Naruto had told them to take a break while Naruto and Apache continued their spar. He was surprised to see Apache still in her released state. It was close to an hour and a half now, and she had been holding her own for almost 12 minutes since Sunday through Sunday had been knocked out. Mila had been first to go, taking more than 3 bala attacks from Naruto as well as numerous punching and kicking combinations. Well of course I'm still here. I'm stronger than you think, Naruto." She clenched her fist as they glowed red. "That's enough for today, Apache-chan." Naruto spoke, "You all did well. I think we should go back and dash." "No." Naruto turned to his subordinate and partner, "What? We're not done yet. Not until I'm sure you've beaten me." Apache shouted, her hands glowing brighter by the minute, "I have my pride, Naruto. Don't just end the battle when I'm still standing. Pride." Naruto spoke, his voice sounding a bit irked, "Apache, don't go and get all high and mighty like that. This match is over. No, it's end dash." Wham! Gak! Apache found herself pinned by the throat as Naruto pressed his left forearm against it, her back on a pillar as he stared at her with a hint of anger. "You say you have pride, Apache? Good. Then let that pride help you realize that you've done well, and that you can be honored in the fact that you're an Arrancar who is stronger than most. The three of you are extraordinary fighters, I won't question that." He pressed against her throat a bit more as she struggled to move. "So what? You say you want me to make sure you're beaten. That's foolish pride getting in the way of your logic, Apache. Pride can be a pillar to hold you up, or a weight to bring you down. You've already lost, Apache. Take it with a grain of salt and hold your head up." Apache dropped to the ground as Naruto released her. She coughed a bit, trying to catch her breath. She knew he was just trying to help her. Her stubborn half was telling her to say he was weak for taking it easy on her. Her logical and gentler side though, which rarely made itself known, decided to speak though. "Sorry, Naruto." Naruto sighed before holding a hand out to her, helping her up as she took it. "It's water over the dam, Apache. I just don't want that pride of yours to be your undoing." The same goes for Mila and Sunday through Sunday. All three of you, while strong, are still not nearly as experienced as me, let alone the Espada and captains in Soul Society. He fluffed her blue hair a bit. "You three, along with Harabel, are like family to me. I don't want to find out that some Shinigami ended up killing one of you because you were too stubborn to retreat. There is no dishonor in doing so when you know you've been outmatched." Mila and an now awake Sunday through Sunday watched as the blonde spoke to his soul fraction. "I don't think I've heard Apache apologize to anyone but Harabel until now." Sunday through Sunday nodded, "She's headstrong. Naruto's trying to fix that for the better so she doesn't end up hurting herself in a battle." Apache had grown to respect Naruto a bit more that day. She was humbled, treated like a child. Yet, at the same time, Naruto had shown her more respect than she had expected from a superior. He wasn't obliged to train her. Neither was Harabel. Fraction were to serve the Espada, not receive training from them. Naruto had told her once that a team is only as strong as its weakest member. If that team doesn't try to help that individual, the team will collapse. Apache had grown up a bit right then and there. She would do her best to not let that Arrancar pride go to her head. She'd earned the right to be proud. About 2 weeks or so passed for Naruto since Aizen had returned with Kaname and Jin. The blonde wasn't too surprised when he had been called to the main chambers along with 2 other Arrancar, Ulquiorra and Yami. "I have a special mission for you 3, Aizen began. "Karakura, as you know, is full of spiritual energy. I wish for you 3 to go to Karakura and seek out a particular being. He is a human with soul reaper abilities. Kaname, if you would." Tozen gave a nod before pulling on a lever that brought up a projection of an orange-haired boy in his mid-teens. This boy was one of the Ryoka that managed to infiltrate Soul Society. "I want you 3 to go down to Karakura and test his abilities. If you meet any other spiritually sensitive beings, do as you like with them, though your main objective is to find and measure the boy's abilities." "What's got your interest set on him, Aizen-sama?" Naruto asked casually. "This boy, he's an interesting one. I truly don't know where to place him in terms of strength, though it is safe to say that he has a good deal of power." "Fair enough," Naruto replied. "I take it we're leaving as soon as possible?" "That would be best, yes," the man replied while taking a sip of tea. "Alright, well, I guess we better get going, huh?" He turned to give Yami and Ulquiorra a grin. "Ready when you 2 are." Yami grunted while getting up, and Ulquiorra did likewise, though without so much as a sound. Naruto really wished that he could have at least had Baragan come instead. The Segunda at least was tolerable, despite his slightly inflated ego. The 2 exited Las Noches and made a rift with Garganta before walking in. The tunnel closed as they stepped in, heading towards the human world. A moment or so later, the 3 reappeared in the blue skies of the human realm. Naruto took in a breath of fresh air. "Ah. Man, this place just doesn't get old. What do you think, Yami?" Yami gave the blonde a slightly irritated look before scanning the area. He shrugged. It's alright." Naruto decided that was the best he'd get in response from either of the 2, so he decided to get to work, right? "So, we're looking for a teenager with a stronger than normal Ryatsu level. Orange hair, brown eyes, crap." Naruto sighed. "You realize that even if we were seeking out Ryatsu levels that it'd take a good portion of time, especially if the kid's got control of his powers?" Ulquiorra turned to Naruto. "We'll just have to create a beacon for the boy then." The 3 landed on the ground, which happened to be in a park area. Naruto noticed a group of teenagers doing some sort of practice for a sport or another. Yami gave a smirk, but Naruto immediately caught on. "Yami, leave them alone. It's hardly fair to attack someone who can't fight back." Yami was about to inhale their souls with his ability, Ganzui, but grumbled as he stopped sucking in air. "Fine, human lover. You got a problem with it?" "Yeah, what kind of Arrancar cares about humans? Seriously, I mean, they're weak, they don't know anything about us Arrancar, and they spend their lives sitting on this mudball living pointless dash. You know, I think I should get you a rock album sometime. I think you'll find yourself liking humans a lot more if you listen to their music." Naruto replied, giving a chuckle as Yami grumbled. "Enough." Ulquiorra commanded. "Uzumaki, seeing as you like being the center of attention, why don't you raise your Ryatsu so that the others in Karakura that are spiritually sensitive can feel it?" Naruto gave a shrug, and with an exhale of breath, slammed a wave of Ryatsu down onto the human settlement. He immediately sensed a few spiritual presences respond, and grinned with amusement. "Looks like we'll be having company sooner than I expected." That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.